Chapter 739. However, she was small and weak, so even after supporting her twice, she only made Feng Manyun half kneel on the ground limply, unable to get up even after a long time. Mississippi Xiangqin wiped her tears and called out pitifully. City Lord Lin gave the two maidservants on his left a look, and those two hastily ran up to help Feng Manyun up. At this time, Feng Manyun was already in an extremely sorry state. Her dress was covered in sand and mud, and her face was also extremely filthy from snot and tears. City Lord Lin sighed. "Miss Feng, let's have someone send you back to rest first." This Miss Feng just had to provoke the willful His Highness the Crown Prince out of all people. Such poor eyesight. How could he endure this? After Feng Manyun was helped up, she kept silent the entire time. Her eyes merely emitted a chilly glint, and the corners of her mouth were tightly upturned. "Miss, let's go." Xiangqin forcefully wiped her tears in indignation. "This place is too much of a bully. Let's return to Celestial Medicine Valley and never come here again." City Lord Lin waved his hand at those two maidservants, and those two quickly helped support Feng Manyun to the carriage parked on the side. It wasn't until they got on the carriage and lowered the curtain that Feng Manyun's bone-deep trembling finally stopped slightly. Just now, those people outside were all looking at her with disdain and schadenfreude. These people. Just how dark and terrifying were their hearts. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have saved them. Why would she be a healer who saved the dying and healed the injured? She saved people in order to enjoy everyone's respectful attitude and loving gazes. She wanted everyone to know that she, Feng Manyun, was an incredible physician who could pull a dying person back from the gates of hell with a single silver needle. Yet at this moment, not only did she not receive heartfelt respect and adoration, she even completely lost face in front of a crowd of commoners, making them see her, great physician Feng, as a joke. She wanted to kill them, she wanted to kill these people who dared to mock her. Feng Manyun's body convulsed and spasmed from time to time, and her limbs trembled uncoordinated. After the carriage left, everyone sighed and gathered together to whisper, "Dr. Feng has been wrong this time, we have to think of a way to visit her in the city lord's mansion. That young master just now was so powerful. When he was angry, I didn't even dare to make a sound. Dr. Feng is really pitiful. Encountering such a powerful young master, we can't help at all. But just now, Dr. Feng," she spoke without thinking and insulted a young lady. She was an innocent young lady, and her reputation was almost ruined by her. This isn't too good. Sigh, maybe it was a misunderstanding. Dr. Feng didn't do it on purpose. The crowd dispersed as they chatted. They didn't know that the Dr. Feng they spoke of had a twisted mind. Now, she wished she could kill all of these people who had seen her in such a sorry state. Crown Prince Mo wordlessly carried Darling Qiao back to the city lord's estate and headed for his residence inside the city lord's estate. The little emperor baby was unhappy. "Why aren't you talking?" Arbor angrily moved his little hands and feet. Stinky Mo Lien, he didn't say a single word to her the entire way. This darling also doesn't want to talk to him. Mo Lien was like a saw-toothed gourd as he carried Darling Qiao all the way back to the dormitory. Once he stepped through the door, he kicked it shut with a bang. "See you on the second day of the new year, my head hurts so much." Chapter 740. You. Qiao Mu had only spat out one word when Mo Lien pushed her down onto the bed. The man then thoroughly sealed the second half of her sentence in her small mouth. The man's kiss came like a storm, a sudden burst of thunder. In an instant, Arbor's breath was taken away. The man's hot breath hit her in the face. It was different from the light kisses in the past. This kiss was gentle, elegant, reserved, and warm. Today's kiss was simply crazy. In an instant, he pounced on her and pressed his lips tightly against hers, grinding and tossing, not giving her a chance to escape again. Xiao Mu grunted and secretly tried to break free, but she only felt that the man's arms were scorching hot and shockingly strong. How could her soft and small body break free from his grip? She only felt that her heart was beating violently, as if it was going to jump out of her chest. Thump, thump, thump. What should she do? This evildoer in front of her was too eye-catching. Even when he was angry and pounced on her, he was still so seductive. In front of such beauty, one would lose the ability to think. Emolien, I. Arbor's breathing was a little rapid, and her heart was in a mess. The man answered in a deep voice and slowly lifted his face. His eyes were slightly upturned, and his handsome face was slightly red as he looked at her from a few inches away. When she struggled to sit up, she saw the evildoer on top of her leaning over. His water-like black hair fell down and fell on her little face. His hair brushed against her neck, tickling her face. The man opened his mouth slightly and spat a mouthful of medicine into her little mouth. Arbor was speechless. Do you still remember what I said before? The man pressed his lips against hers and rubbed gently. If you disappear without a word again, I will tie you to my side, never allow you to leave my side again. I didn't disappear. Arbor widened her round eyes angrily. Now, other than her head and mouth, she couldn't move her body and limbs. She was so angry. It disappeared. Mo Lien spoke faintly as he bit her small mouth neither lightly nor heavily. It was the night before yesterday. Your aura disappeared in an instant. Arbor suddenly fell silent. The night before yesterday, that was when she went to Paradise Planet to stay the night. The man turned his head slightly, one hand supporting his head while the other caressed her little face. He murmured softly, I don't like the feeling of you disappearing. It's as if everything in the world has turned into nothing. It was as if he had turned into ashes in an instant. Mo Lien's slender fingers caressed her tender cheeks inch by inch as he gazed at her with a slightly dazed gaze. My heart feels empty, as if someone dug out a large piece of it. It's so unbearable. That kind of feeling, even if he wanted to cry, he couldn't shout. It was as if the heavens and earth had turned into nothingness for a moment. He desperately tried to grab hold of something, but in the end, he couldn't grab hold of anything. His face drooped down, suddenly burying it in Xiao Mu's hair, and his breathing also turned more oppressive. Jojo, what do you want me to do? Don't disappear, don't leave me, don't ever leave me, okay, he said softly, his head slowly rubbing against her hair twice. Xiao Mu's heart melted because of this man. Chapter 741. This man looked noble and proper on the surface, but he was so good at whispering sweet nothings in secret. It was so soft that she couldn't help blushing and her heart beating faster. Arbor's lips were numb and soft. Her little face was red and her little mouth couldn't help but open slightly. She was like a beautiful little flower, waiting to be gently plucked. The two of them kissed each other with their lips and teeth, as if they were going to fuse together. They kissed for a while. The temperature in the room rose quite a bit. Arbor suddenly realized that her little hands and feet could move. She couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. She gently raised her hand and touched the man's furry head. Mo Lien. Arbor called out softly. The man raised his head slightly. His gaze was so deep that it was as if he could see through her. His gaze was so deep that it almost sucked her into the abyss. Baby. He gently rubbed his lips on her little face and reached out to hold her face. He looked straight into her eyes. Have me in your eyes, okay? He was most afraid that he wouldn't be able to imprint his figure in those beautiful eyes. He wanted her eyes to have him, to have his reflection, to have his existence. Even if at this moment, this baby's heart might not be like his, loving so intensely and deeply that he couldn't extricate himself. It didn't matter. He had the patience to integrate into her life bit by bit. Like the spring wind and rain, he seeped into her world and her life. He firmly grasped her heart and took it for himself. He wouldn't let her escape even half an inch. Arbor gave a muffled mm. She subconsciously reached out and secretly touched her heart. What was going on? Her heart kept pounding non-stop. It was beating so fast that she was in a mess. She kept feeling that the current her didn't seem like herself anymore. I'm sleepy. Xiaomu abruptly pulled over the bedding beside her and covered her head with it, blocking his scorching gaze. His gaze was too burning. It burned her whole body and made her cheeks unbearably hot. The little fellow wrapped herself up like a little cicada pupa. Her neck and head were all buried in the blanket. It wasn't until Mo Lian tugged lightly that he dug her small head out from the thick blankets. Why are you wrapped so tightly? Mo Lian sighed softly and stuffed her two small hands into the blankets. He pulled the blankets up to her neck and leaned over to plant a kiss on her forehead. Go to sleep. Just as he got up half an inch, a soft hissing sound came from his mouth. It turned out that a strand of her hair had been caught by the button on her clothes. Arbor lowered his head. His little fingers moved slightly as he silently untied the strand of hair. When he raised his head, his eyes met with the boy's watery eyes. Jojo. He called out to her in a low voice. His eyes were filled with love, as if he wanted to melt her whole body. Arbor felt his heart skip a beat. He cried out in alarm and pulled the blanket up like an ostrich, covering his head with it. Mo Lian giggled and hugged the blanket wrapped around the doll. Her mood was lifted. It seemed like his little fellow still had feelings for him. Looking at her shy little face, it really melted his heart. He reached out and pulled her little head out from under the blankets. Then, he lifted her blankets and shamelessly laid down. He reached out and hugged her tightly. All right, it's late. Let's sleep. Mo Lian said as he rubbed against her soft little body. It's freezing outside. Chapter 742. Xiaomu's eyes abruptly turned round. This guy wasn't going to leave today. Him. Was this guy acting coquettishly with her just now? Arbor's little hand naturally reached over and patted Mo Lian's head. Then she rolled onto the bed, as if she wanted to wrap herself into a cocoon again. Mo Lian realized that this little fellow's sleeping habit seemed to be that she liked to wrap herself into a cocoon. He reached out and pulled her to his side. He hugged her and patted her. You're cold. Arbor blinked and lifted her head from his embrace. Time to sleep. Time to sleep. Mo Lian hugged her and rubbed her little hand. Are you cold? No. Now that there was another person beside her, it wasn't good for her to continue wrapping herself in the blanket. Moreover, Mo Lian's body was pressed against hers. It felt like there was a small stove beside her. Mo Lian's body was so warm. He was a man, so his body temperature was higher than hers. Moreover, he cultivated the fire spirit, so he was naturally like a little sun, emitting warmth all over. With this person pressed against her, she was enveloped in a unique masculine scent. How could she fall asleep? Instead, she felt more and more awake. I can't sleep. Mo Lian was still talking to her. He patted her back gently. Do you want to get up and eat something? Eating a midnight snack? Xiaomu asked and even rubbed her small belly. It seemed a little flat, but supper was not bad. Mo Lian's eyebrows twitched. Suddenly, there was a sound from the window. A voice rang out softly from outside. Master, Supper is here. Do you have any orders? Arbor was speechless. Why did their master always come up with such ridiculous names? Mo Lien coughed lightly. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Oh. Student Xiao Yi scratched his head and hid his figure in confusion. Mo Lien chuckled. Our subordinate is very honest. Arbor curled his lip speechlessly. Let them all rest. It was already so late at night. What could possibly be happening? Furthermore, he was standing guard by the window, popping his head out from time to time. It was really creepy. All right. Mo Lien didn't say much. She carried the little fellow and sat down by the bed. She ordered the servants to prepare some food. Not long after, a box of piping hot pastries and 2 bowls of wontons was brought in. After eating 5 to 6 small wontons, Xiaomu couldn't eat anymore, so she pushed the rest to Mo Lien. Meanwhile, she picked up a small piece of glutinous rice cake and nibbled on it. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to follow Lin Yongyi to see the field that can grow crops. Mo Lien stretched out her finger and wiped away the pastry crumbs on the little fellow's lips. Do you want to go together? Arbor thought for a moment before shaking his head. He took out a level 11 mystic breakthrough pill from his bag. I'll take this tomorrow and enter closed-door cultivation to advance first, okay? She had long wanted to take this level 11 mystic breakthrough pill, but it had been delayed until now by a bunch of things. Yes, she wanted to quickly break through to level 12 mystic cultivation so that the sapling could drag Mo Lien into Paradise Planet to take a look. Okay. Mo Lien naturally nodded. Then you advance well. I'll go alone. I might come back late. If you come out of seclusion early, you can eat by yourself first. Arbor nodded. I might take quite a long time. It was only 10:30 p.m. when the banquet ended. Chapter 743. Okay. Mo Lien naturally understood that the more stable one's cultivation was when they wanted to advance, the longer it would take to advance. I'll wait for you, there's no hurry. Advance well, you must not be distracted. After eating supper, the two of them wandered around the room twice to digest their food. Seeing that the little fellow was sleepy, Mo Lien carried her to rinse her mouth, wipe her face, and fall asleep on the bed. Early the next morning, Arbor opened her sleepy eyes and subconsciously reached out to touch the bed. The bed beside her was already cold. Presumably, Mo Lien really went to the fields early in the morning before dawn to look at the crops. The little fellow was a little listless. She got up to wash up and casually ate some breakfast. Then, she ordered people not to disturb her and closed the door by herself. A level 11 mystic breakthrough pill appeared at her fingertips. Arbor lowered her head to take a look. With a wave of her finger, 60 blue guiding talismans appeared around her, forming a circle. Then, another 60 binding talismans were thrown out, setting up a binding talisman array around her. Following several ping-pang sounds, the doors and windows were all sealed by the mystic energy restriction she set up. This manually created a sealed cultivation room. After Xiao Mu swallowed that level 11 mystic breakthrough pill, it instantly attracted mystic energy from all directions, which all flocked toward this cultivation room in unison. The level 11 mystic breakthrough pill was indeed extraordinary. Especially this purple-veined pill of hers, its effect was very good. After taking it for a short while, it began to show its effects. She calmed her heart and closed her eyes to break through. On the other side, Mo Lien was led by Lin Yongyi to a field to check it out. This field was not even 10 mu of land, and it was planted with a field of earthy yellow crops. This crop seems to have never been seen before. Is it a newly cultivated variety? Mo Lien was talking to Lin Yongyi in a low voice. Lin Yongyi nodded repeatedly, Your Highness, after this yellow stalk is harvested and ground into powder, it's somewhat similar to wheat flour. It's a crop that we've researched with great difficulty recently. The most gratifying thing is that this crop will not mutate when it grows. How long is the growth period of this crop? Lin Yongyi hesitated for a moment, then sighed and said, I won't hide it from Your Highness. This kind of yellow shaft takes too long to grow. It needs 1.5 years to harvest. But rest assured, Your Highness, we are also working hard to shorten its growth cycle. Mo Lian nodded with a heavy expression. A harvest period of 1.5 years was a little too long. If there was enough food to sustain the lives of the common people, then their lives would get better and better. City Lord, City Lord. As they were speaking, a dark-skinned steward from the City Lord's estate hurriedly ran over with sweat all over his forehead. He hurriedly greeted Mo Lian and the City Lord. Greetings to Your Highness the Crown Prince and the City Lord. Old son, if you have something to say it quickly. The City Lord saw his anxious expression and his heart couldn't help but tighten a little. City Lord, that apothecary Hong suddenly decided to quit. Old son was burning with anxiety and couldn't help but curse loudly, that son of a bitch, how could he do this? He's too inconsiderate. The City Lord had given him such preferential treatment and had even sent someone to serve him with food and drink. How could he quit just like that? What? Lin Yongyi was greatly shocked. Chapter 744. Apothecary Hong is quitting. But he's the main researcher on the yellow shaft's accelerated growth period. How could he? Did he say why he's quitting? That son of a bitch, he didn't say anything. Old man's son was so angry that he stomped his feet and scolded. He threw away his tools just now and even dragged a few of the commissioners with him. Then hurry up and stop him. Lin Yongyi also jumped up anxiously. The research on the yellow shaft's harvest hadn't been completed yet, so how could Apothecary Hong just leave like that? These days, thanks to Apothecary Hong's special cultivation of the yellow shaft with special herbs, they would be able to harvest in 2 or 3 months. How could he just leave like that? Old man's son hurriedly shouted, I've already sent people to stop them. They should be at the gate of the courtyard now. Then let's hurry over and take a look. The City Lord hurriedly turned and bowed to Prince Mo, Your Highness, this humble subject has been impolite. There are some urgent matters here that need to be dealt with immediately. Prince Mo nodded. I'll go with you to take a look. Yes. City Lord Lin hurriedly nodded and hurried to the gate with Old Man Sunday. This piece of land was behind a farmhouse. Ever since this piece of land was able to grow crops like the yellow stalk, it had been growing for a long time. The ecstatic City Lord Lin was worried that some ignorant commoners would run in and trample the farmland, so he had already set up guards outside the courtyard. Therefore, when Apothecary Hong and the others wanted to go out, the soldiers who received the order would definitely stop them. At this time, Hong Yaowei was holding his nose to the sky and crossing his arms. He coldly looked disdainfully at the soldiers blocking their way. All of you, get out of my way. Apologies, Apothecary Hong. The City Lord has ordered you to wait for a moment. The soldiers guarding the farmhouse's courtyard said to him in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. This Hong Yaowei's character really wasn't very good. Usually, because he was one of the most important commissioners who mainly studied the yellow shaft's growth period, the City Lord and the others were very courteous to him and were in fear and trepidation. This Hong Yaowei was a bit arrogant. Wherever he went, he looked down on people, causing the farmhouse's soldiers and servants to look down on him. However, due to the City Lord's order, he had no choice but to be courteous to Hong Yaowei. When the mayor and Prince Mo arrived at the entrance of the farmhouse, they saw Hong Yaowei angrily scolding the guards. The city lord hurriedly ran forward and comforted him with an apologetic smile. Alchemist Hong, please calm down. I wonder what the servants have done to displease Alchemist Hong. Why did Alchemist Hong suddenly propose to leave this place? Hong Yao snorted coldly. City Lord Lin, everyone knows what you've done. Don't play dumb with me. City Lord Lin was confused. He really didn't understand how he had offended this Apothecary Hong. Apothecary Hong, I really don't know what made Apothecary Hong unhappy. Why don't Apothecary Hong tell me? Hong Yao burst into laughter. How could you forget what you did to my junior sister at the city gate last night after only one night? Junior sister. Lin Yongyi's heart skipped a beat. In an instant, it was as clear as a mirror. That's right, this Hong Yao was also an apothecary who had walked out of Celestial Medicine Valley. Moreover, he was Feng Manyun's senior and junior sister. Feng Manyun's matter must have agitated this Lord Hong. Chapter 745. Hong Yao's heart ached for his good junior sister, and in a fit of rage, he abandoned his job and came to avenge her. Apothecary Hong, Apothecary Hong. City Lord Lin persuaded this Lord Hong with a distressed expression, please quell your anger. You really can't just quit on the matter of the yellow shaft. Mo Lien, who was standing silently on the side, had long understood the sequence of events, and she couldn't help but sneer at that Apothecary Hong. City Lord Lin's heart immediately sank along with Prince Mo's sneer. Who in the imperial court hadn't heard of His Highness the Crown Prince's various willful deeds? This was a lord who did as he pleased. City Lord Lin cursed Hong Yao inside out, but on the surface, he still had to smile. Apothecary Hong, how about you reconsider? We have already signed an agreement. You have to help me cultivate the yellow stem and shorten its growth period. If we were to take out the agreement to do things, wouldn't that be a bit unsightly? You dare to threaten me? Hong Yao rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was about to immediately pick a fight with City Lord Lin. Do you know who I am? I am a member of the Hong family. A member of the capital's Hong family. Hong Yao shouted coldly. Not only that, but I am also a member of the Celestial Medicine Valley. Hong Yao said angrily, you actually dare to treat a member of the Celestial Medicine Valley like this? Aren't you afraid of being drowned by the saliva of everyone in the world? My junior sister came to your Bailon city as a traveling doctor out of the goodness of her heart. She didn't collect any treatment fees, only the fee for medicinal materials. She saved so many of your people. Hong Yao became more and more spirited as he spoke, berating repeatedly, what about you? You people, not only don't you respect her, you even crushed her face into the ground in public. I'm telling you, Lin Yongyi. Today, I'm leaving for sure. Not only am I leaving. These people are also leaving with me. Let's go. Miss Fang's diehard fans clenched their fists as they berated loudly. After hearing Hong Yao talk about Miss Feng, each and every one of them cried injustice for her, and their hearts ached terribly. Miss Feng was such a fairy-like person, how could someone be so ruthless to her? As soon as Hong Yao said that he was going to quit, several of Miss Feng's diehard fans responded at the same time. They immediately threw down their hoes and seeds and followed Hong Yao to leave. Humph, what a joke. Did they think that Bailon City's treatment was very good? For people like them, who were able to research and grow a crop like yellow stock, they would be able to make a living wherever they went. He could even negotiate with the city lords of other cities. Maybe he could get better treatment. Prince Mo narrowed his eyes and sneered, men. Surround him. Fight. Hit him hard. As soon as he finished speaking, almost 20 young men in black swarmed over from all directions like phantoms. Holding heavy sticks in their hands, they surrounded Hong Yao and the 7 commissioners who came with him and pressed their sticks forward without saying a word. Grabbing their arms, they waved their sticks brutally and hit them hard. Bang! 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 On the side, City Lord Lin was hopping about as he watched, and his eyelids rolled back repeatedly. He could only murmur in persuasion, Your Highness, Your Highness. Go fetch that agreement you were talking about. Mo Lien harumphed angrily, shooting a severe gaze at Lin Yongyi. Is this how you indulge these people? No wonder there hasn't been any progress or efficiency after so long. Lin Yongyi's heart thumped heavily, and he only felt that his bad luck was pressing down on him. End of 6 p.m. See you tomorrow. Chapter 746. Preposterous. Hong Yao panted heavily as he cursed with a flushed face. At this moment, his arms were lifted up with wooden sticks and he was being beaten by several black-clothed youths. His back was bruised by the sticks, and it hurt and itched, making him anxious and angry. You, who are you? Hong Yao shouted angrily. He felt that these people were fierce and unreasonable. He didn't want to admit defeat so quickly, but unfortunately, he was weak and had no choice but to lower his head under the eaves. Hong Yao, together with the other 7 commissioners, was forced to kneel on the ground. No matter how they roared, their arrogance was greatly diminished after the collision of the sticks. The crowd parted slightly to the sides, making a path for the Crown Prince to pass through. Prince Mo coldly reached out and took the agreement that old man's son respectfully presented. He only glanced at it briefly before throwing it heavily at Hong Yao's face. He sneered and said, Within 10 days, I want to see significant results in this farmland. Otherwise, there's no use for you to keep it. Not only do I want you to die, I also want to execute your entire family and punish you for the crime of deceiving the monarch. All of you, take care of yourselves. Mo Lien's phoenix eyes narrowed as he coldly threw down these words. He turned around and gently raised his hand. The youths of the Hidden Night Pavilion respectfully bowed to receive the order. Watch them. Today is also counted as one of the 10 days. Whoever dares to incite rebellion will be killed. Prince Mo coldly glanced back. In an instant, everyone in the farmhouse held their breaths, not daring to say another word. Lin Yongyi slightly lowered his head and cupped his hands in salute, not daring to raise his head. Prince Mo's cold gaze shifted to City Lord Lin as he said indifferently, You, come here. Yes. Lin Yongyi's heart skipped a beat. His head was still lowered as he quickly moved to keep up with Prince Mo's pace. Seeing that terrifying man leave, Hong Yao was about to open his mouth and shout when a commissioner beside him couldn't help but curse, What are you doing? You people! How dare you treat us like this? How dare you use this method to force us to study the cultivation of the yellow stalk? We will not yield. A silver light flashed across that man's neck. In the next second, a round head fell off from that guy's neck and rolled on the ground before landing beside Hong Yao's feet. Ah! Hong Yao collapsed to the ground in fear. He screamed in a hoarse voice and kicked his legs, trying to move his butt backward. Xiao Yi raised his hand and stopped the young man who was about to make a move. He said coldly, By His Highness' order, anyone who disagrees will be executed without mercy. Hong Yao and the remaining 6 commissioners became obedient. They trembled like quails and shrank into a corner, looking at the dozen young men of the Hidden Night Pavilion in fear. On the other side, when they arrived at the City Lord's estate study, Mo Lien wordlessly sat down on the seat of honor. Hui Feng's hands were clasped behind his back as he stood upright behind the Crown Prince. Lin Yongyi hastily knelt in front of the desk and buried his head, smiling wryly on the inside. It was a pity that he, a man in his 40s, was so intimidated by a young man in his early 20s that he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. It could be seen that the crown prince was so powerful that ordinary people didn't dare to look him in the eye. "Hand over your city lord's token," Mo Lien said coldly. Chapter 748. Miss. It's bad. Xiangqin tossed aside the kettle in her hand and stumbled inside. Feng Manyun, who was currently concocting some medicine on the table while wrapping herself in a quilt, abruptly raised her head, and her limbs convulsed in an uncoordinated manner. "Miss." Xiangqin ran up and hastily helped tidy up the medicine on the table. "Miss, when I passed by the kitchen just now, I overheard the other maidservant saying that the city lord has already ordered us to be evicted from the city lord's estate and sent to live on a farm. It's the farm that your senior brother Hong is at." Feng Manyun's pupils contracted, and her limbs convulsed uncontrollably again. She shrieked uncontrollably, "Lin Yongyi actually dared to treat us like this. I am Celestial Medicine Valley's top 50 physician Feng. He actually dared. He actually dared." Feng Manyun was so infuriated that she nearly shattered her silver teeth from clenching them. Her entire body convulsed in the quilt, and she looked almost a bit neurotic. "Miss, I heard that senior brother Hong failed to cause a ruckus with his people this morning, and City Lord Lin has also restrained him. Miss, what should we do?" Xiangqin was a bit scared. The young miss and her were just ordinary people who did not have the strength to truss a chicken. The city lord only needed to send a few strong and powerful soldiers to throw the two of them out of the manor. Xiangqin was a bit regretful now that she couldn't stop Miss from sending a message to senior brother Hong. Originally, they could at least recuperate peacefully in the city lord's estate for a while. But now, with Miss in this state, how were they going to survive after being chased to a farm? Move aside, all of you move aside." A bang came from outside the door. The door to the room was rudely kicked open, and several burly soldiers from the city lord's estate strode inside. Amidst the master and servant pair's uncontrollable screams, they were dragged out of the room. Feng Manyun wrapped herself tightly in a quilt, completely wrapping herself inside. She kicked the soldiers in front of her in a panic and impatience as she shrieked, "Lin Yongyi, you old thief, you actually dared to treat me like this. Our Celestial Medicine Valley absolutely won't take this lying down. Lin Yongyi. Ah! Ah!" Feng Manyun let out heart-wrenching screams. "Shut up!" A soldier bluntly slapped Feng Manyun's face before dragging her outside with large strides. "His Highness has ordered that all unrelated people are to immediately move out of the city lord's estate and are not allowed to disturb the crown princess's peaceful cultivation. Violators will be beheaded. Let go of me, let go of me, let go of me." Feng Manyun's limbs twitched nervously, and she was so infuriated that her face was completely distorted. "Ah! Ah!" Feng Manyun's hair accessories, which were wrapped in the quilt, had all fallen to the ground as she struggled. Her disheveled hair made her look like a lunatic. "I won't let you off, I won't let you off." Feng Manyun shrieked as she was thrown out of the city lord's estate. The soldiers threw the two of them into a carriage and drove them to the farmstead while screaming. Feng Manyun crawled on the tattered carriage's curtain. Her face, which had turned scarlet and distorted, was imprinted on the carriage window as she shrieked, "I won't let you off, I won't let you off. Miss, they're too much." Xiangqin wiped away her tears as she shrieked, "Lin Yongyi is ungrateful, treating a member of the Celestial Medicine Valley like this. Miss, we can't take this lying down no matter what." Feng Manyun frantically searched through the bundle beside her. Chapter 749. After rummaging around, Feng Manyun finally pulled out a bottle from her cloth bag. She clutched it tightly in her hand and bellowed while panting heavily, I want all of them to die for me. Die, die, die. Ah. Someone would eventually have to suffer all the humiliation, grievances, and suffering she had to endure. Someone would have to pay a heavy price for this. Ah. Wrapped in the bedding, Feng Manyun convulsed and trembled uncontrollably. Her lips were snow-white, and her gaze was fixated on the bleak scenery outside the window that was constantly moving. My Chow's section break, SSS. Slivers of wriggling black shadows crawled up the window lattice. SSS. The white snakelet inside Arbor's waist pocket suddenly stuck out its small head, and its watery eyes vigilantly surveyed its surroundings. SSS. The small black snakes that had burrowed into the room were firmly bound by the binding talisman matrix. No matter how they wriggled, they couldn't break free from the binding talisman matrix. The white snakelet's head was raised high, and its pair of watery eyes turned icy as it stared at those black snakes that had burrowed into the room. Suddenly, a black figure burrowed out from the floor of the room. This person seemed to have burrowed out of thin air, and his figure was abnormally short. If Arbor could open his eyes right now, he would definitely discover that this person looked exactly the same as the pygmy who had tamed the poison-tailed butterflies that she had killed back then. He had a triangular head, different-sized eyes, and one eyebrow was high while the other was low. It was an extremely irritating sight. The pygmy's head and hands were covered with many wriggling small black snakes, and he was even emitting snake hissing sounds to lure the snakes to attack the talisman matrix. He was a snake exorcist, and just like his brother who tamed the poison-tailed butterflies, he also had the ability to drive and tame snakes. Actually, these pygmies were triplets who had followed Shantian Prefecture's Luigi for many years. The one Arbor had killed in the abandoned house back then was the youngest among them, their third brother. This dwarf was the second of the three brothers. The second dwarf's ability was to drive snakes, and he also had a special ability to drill into the ground. The triplets had their own telepathy. The moment their third brother died, the eldest and the second dwarf received their brother's miserable state before he died without using any special external objects such as life lanterns. They also saw their enemy's face clearly. However, Shantian Prefecture had been suppressed by Luigi during this period of time, so they weren't able to leave Bailon fortifications to avenge their brothers. However, they had already engraved the appearance of the little demoness who had killed their brother in their hearts. Furthermore, as long as this little demon girl appeared within a radius of 100 miles, the two brothers would be able to sense her exact location. As a result, the moment Arbor set foot in Bailon City, the first and second pygmy triplets had actually already sensed this little witch's existence. They had been secretly observing the situation and had only made their move now. What he wanted was this perfect opportunity. The little demoness was actually in closed-door cultivation to advance her cultivation. Ha 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 ha, the heavens were truly helping him. This time, the little demoness aura would be in disorder and she would suffer from chi deviation, even exploding and dying. It wasn't that Arbor, who was currently at the critical juncture of her advancement, didn't know what was happening in the outside world, but she definitely couldn't be distracted. At the same time, the group of people who were standing guard outside her room, led by hidden guard Lightning, had already sensed that something was amiss. With a whistle, everyone drilled out from their hiding places and pounced over with grave expressions, dealing with the snakes that were continuously flooding into the room as quickly as possible. Chapter 750. Lightning and the others did not dare to make too much noise, fearing that they would disturb the crown princess who was cultivating in seclusion. However, the number of snakes was too dense. Lightning made a gesture and everyone spread out, quickly clearing the snakes. Hiss. A fierce look emerged from the white snake's cute eyes as it coldly stared at second dwarf brother's figure that had emerged from the corner. Second dwarf brother moved his feet, a cold smile on his lips as he approached the binding glyph array step by step. Bang! His figure suddenly burrowed into the ground under the watchful eyes of the little white snake. The little white snake was on full alert. In its pair of round eyes, there was already a substantial murderous intent condensing. Whoosh! Second dwarf brother's figure suddenly appeared within the second layer of the mystic guiding glyph array that Arbor had set up. At this moment, the mystic guiding glyph array had already lost its effectiveness due to the passage of time. Second dwarf brother used his special ability to directly avoid coming into contact with the binding glyph array and appeared beside Arbor. His pair of cold old eyes were filled with killing intent. He raised the heavy hammer in his right hand high up and was about to smash it down on Arbor's little head. Second dwarf brother cracked open his mouth and laughed. "Little bastard, let's see if you still have half a life left if you don't die this time." Ha 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 ha. Outside, lightning leaped into the air and let out a shrill cry. With a whistle, hundreds of black shadows gathered from all directions and surged toward the room. Several hidden guards had already heard the noise from inside the room. One by one, they flipped over the window and entered the room. Only to hear a hiss roar coming from inside the house. The roar rolled, and a huge snake as thick as 10 people hugging it opened its huge mouth, swallowing and spitting out black fog. With a boom sound, it penetrated through the roof. Covered in black mist, the snake opened its mouth wide and stared coldly at second dwarf brother who was rapidly retreating with a face full of fear. Hiss! The huge snake roared angrily and swayed its huge tail. Its huge mouth was right next to second dwarf brother's frightened face. In the blink of an eye, he had bitten the upper half of the dwarf brother's body into his mouth with a crunch. As he swung his body around, the messy internal organs fell out and scattered all over the ground. The thick body of the snake was shrouded in darkness. It spiraled through the roof and crashed into a towering tree on the opposite side. Half of the tree withered from the impact. With a series of creaking sounds, the tree broke in half. The upper half of the thick tree trunk came crashing down with a terrifying sound of wind and whistling. All the secret guards in the courtyard were so shocked that they hurriedly jumped onto the eaves. Crunch, 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 crunch. A terrifying grinding sound came from the snake's mouth. Half of second dwarf brother's body was swallowed by the snake's huge mouth, and then it spat it out in disdain. Pieces of flesh fell to the ground, and blood dripped down, as if it was raining blood. All the secret guards looked up in shock at the giant snake that had suddenly emerged from the crown princess room. Oh my god! What level of mystic beast was this? How could it be so violent and terrifying? Hiss! The huge snake spat out its tongue angrily. Its long tongue flung out and directly razed the surrounding trees to the ground. Half of the houses had collapsed. Everyone in the city lord's manor was shocked by this huge noise. What the hell is going on? All the masters and servants in the city lord's manor rushed out of their rooms. Chapter 751. When they looked up, they saw the giant snake that had drilled its way out of the roof. The snake's head was held high above the eaves, and its enormous body was coiling in circles. Even though Lin Yongyi was experienced and knowledgeable, he couldn't help but be speechless at this moment. Hiss! The giant snake spat out a poisonous mist from its mouth. All of the frightened and writhing little snakes were sent flying by this cold wind. Hiss! The giant snake once again let out a terrifying roar, shaking some of the shadow guards who were closer to it. The blood in their hearts surged, and they couldn't help but bleed from the corners of their mouths. The giant snake's coiled body slithered down from the eaves, shrinking inch by inch until it finally shrunk to the white snakelet's original tiny size. With a plop, it limply landed on Chow Mu's knees. The crown prince rushed over after hearing the news, burning with anxiety. At a glance, he saw that more than half of the wing where Jojo was in had collapsed. His heart began to clench tightly. Jojo. Prince Mo hurriedly ran into the wing, but was shocked to find that his baby's body was wrapped in a patch of emerald green vines. In front of his eyes, she was gradually becoming transparent inch by inch, as if she was about to disappear. Jojo. Mo Lien rushed forward in a panic, wanting to grab her little hand, but her wrist was entangled by several green vines. Master is fine. Relax and cooperate with me. I'll drag you in. Cho shouted. Right now, it couldn't care too much. It could only waste some of its life force to drag Prince Mo into Paradise Planet first. Mo Lien's heart stirred slightly. Her fingers slid and wrapped around Arbor's somewhat cold fingertips. Suddenly, her vision blurred. When she looked again, she was already in a beautiful paradise. In front of her was a towering tree. It was actually a terrifyingly tall peach tree. Mo Lien had never seen such a mutated peach tree that was so tall that it looked like it could pierce through the sky. The peach trees were laden with fruits. Each peach was as big as a wash basin. This was simply too exaggerated. The vines retreated from his hand, and Mo Lien hurriedly reached out to hold Arbor, who had collapsed and was breathing unsteadily. Jojo. Your Highness, don't worry. Master is fine. Please help her sit down and let her continue to absorb the mystic energy here. The little tray ant hopped over and directed Mo Lien to move Arbor to the tree so that she could continue to meditate. Little water child used water to circle a large pile of magnetite and ran over, piling them up beside Arbor's legs. It's all right now. Let Master continue to absorb the mystic energy. She's about to break through. The little tray ant wiped its sweat, and only then did it have the time to run over to observe the little white snake's condition. Mo Lien looked at Arbor for a while. Seeing that her breathing was gradually stabilizing, she couldn't help but sigh in relief. It's fine. Cho hopped around and directed the other little tray ants to move the little white snake to the side to rest. The little white snake suddenly transformed and erupted. She should just be exhausted right now. She'll be fine after some rest. You guys. Prince Mo looked at the little tray ants in shock. His gaze then swept past the little water child and the little chick. Cho drooped its head, looking completely exhausted. I also have to go rest. Dragging you in just now was really too tiring. Why don't you send a message to your subordinates first and tell them not to worry? I'll wait for Master to wake up and have her tell you herself. Cho exhaled with an "ah" and dragged its tired little steps, falling on its back beside Arbor. Chapter 752. This is the paradise, right? Mo Lien muttered to herself. She couldn't help but stroll around Paradise Planet. Although she knew that the heart of paradise had been refined into a mystic domain by Jojo for her own use, she truly didn't know that this little fellow was so resourceful that she could actually merge this mystic domain into her own body. Could it be that she had disappeared for more than 2 years in this place? A thought flashed through Mo Lien's mind. After strolling for a short while, she saw that all of the mystic energy in Paradise Planet was surging toward Arbor, forming a terrifying mystic energy nebula that condensed above Darling Chow's head. Mo Lien hurriedly strolled back to Arbor's side and saw that the little water child was earnestly moving piece after piece of mystic stone into Arbor's hands, allowing her to absorb and use them on her own. His darling was indeed formidable. She needed such a vast amount of mystic energy just to break through to level 11 mystic cultivation. The more mystic energy consumed during the breakthrough, the more stable and solid the realm after the breakthrough. And just now, she had already cleanly absorbed all of the mystic energy in the vicinity of the city lord's estate within a radius of 50 kilometers in the outside world for about a day. This still wasn't enough. Mo Lian's heart stirred. She stood in front of Arbor, and with a slight movement of her fingers, a thick mystic energy was drawn out of her body and endlessly channeled into Arbor's body. The small tree Chocho, who was lying on the side like a corpse, suddenly moved and exclaimed in its heart, "The Crown Prince's mystic energy is very thick and pure." With his assistance, Little Master's breakthrough this time will definitely be smoother, even though there will be some twists and turns. About 2 hours later, Arbor's consciousness gradually became clearer. She used her spiritual awareness to observe her body and saw that the 2 branch meridians had already undergone continuous training and were now about the same width as the main meridians. She successfully entered the cultivation of the 4th layer of the Spirit Division Record's Soul Chapter and opened the 3rd branch meridian. The 4th layer of the Soul Chapter mainly cultivated the mystic energy in the 2 branch meridians and the main meridians as one wished, ensuring that the mystic energy in the main meridians was endless and continuous. With this kind of cultivation method, it was equivalent to using the vast and mighty profound energy stored in 3 profound veins to fight against one person. Naturally, the chances of winning would be much higher. The current mystic domain realm was already 2 inches larger than its olive-sized appearance from before. The profound energy from the 2 branch veins and the 1 main vein made a few rounds in the profound veins before the excess profound energy returned to the profound ruins. The mystic domain realm was entangled by the little tree's vines. After absorbing the remaining mystic energy, it was gradually buried into the little tree's roots, disappearing without a trace. When normal mystic cultivators fought, they would use the mystic energy surging in their mystic veins. The mystic domain was equivalent to a replenishment area. If he could be like Arbor and absorb profound energy with the profound domain talisman array, then when fighting, the profound domain realm would be able to continuously absorb profound energy from the outside world. Naturally, the duration of the battle would be extended. If the most fundamental profound energy stored in the profound domain was also completely exhausted in battle, then the situation they faced would be quite dangerous. After all, the speed at which mystic cultivators recovered mystic energy was not fast. If the mystic domain was exhausted and damaged, the mystic veins and even the mystic domain realm were damaged, treatment would become very troublesome. Unless you had some miraculous elixir that could rapidly recover your mystic energy, or you were like those people from large sects who carried some kind of natural treasure that could recover mystic energy at any time. Of course, this kind of thing was very rare. After the mystic domain realm disappeared, Arbor felt that the vast and mighty mystic energy in his body had already successfully broken through the barrier of level 11 Mystic Cultivator. Level 12 Mystic Cultivator, Entry Level. Chapter 753. Sure enough, this level 11 Mystic Breakthrough Pill was out of the ordinary. It helped her break through the 4 minor realms of level 11 Mystic Cultivator: Gradual Accomplishment, Initial Accomplishment, Phenomenal Accomplishment, and Peak, in one fell swoop, successfully entering the threshold realm of level 12 Mystic Cultivator. However, this was also thanks to her usual cultivation realm suppression and accumulation. Arbor slowly opened her eyes, and there seemed to be star fragments swirling and gathering in her clear and cold eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Mo Lian's tall and straight figure imprinted itself into her eyes. That man in white, who was as slender and exquisite as jade bamboo, was currently standing under the towering peach blossom tree beside her and gazing at her with a grin. Arbor immediately crawled up from the ground. She rubbed her eyes and abruptly reached out to pounce at Mo Lian. The man's chuckle deepened. He reached out and caught the little fellow in his arms, pressing her down and stealing a kiss without any explanation. Jojo. Mo Lian. Arbor's little head squirmed in his arms, and she looked up at him. I advanced. Emichim, my Jojo is awesome. Mo Lien reached out to hug her, his eyes turning into crescents as he smiled. Jojo, Jojo. Arbor turned to look around and suddenly seemed to have discovered something. Her gaze landed on the towering peach blossom tree behind the two of them, and she exclaimed in shock, Chocho, Chocho. This tree. Master. Chocho stood up stiffly from under the tree like a corpse coming back to life. It straddled its two short legs and wailed as it wriggled over to Arbor's side. Its two forked arms hugged Arbor's thighs and hung on her skirt. Chocho wailed, Master. I actually wanted to tell you yesterday. I don't know if our family's peach blossom tree ate the wrong thing, but it feels like it's grown a bit perverted. Arbor. Oh right, where's the little white snake? How is it? What could have happened to little white snake? It just used too much force and now needs to rest and recover. Although Arbor had sealed his 5 senses at that time, his telegnosis could still see the scene of the little white snake biting through the dwarf's second brother. At that time, if it wasn't for the little white snake's attack, his situation would have been very bad. Xiaomu first went to the peach tree to check on the white snakelet that was paralyzed and recuperating there with its eyes closed. After confirming that it was indeed fine, she then pulled Mo Lien towards that perverted peach tree. Chocho, what's wrong with this tree? Master, this peach blossom tree has become so strange. I think it has something to do with that lump of dirt. What dirt clump? Master Silver, go take a look. Do you still remember? The lump of dirt that you took out from the blue wand's wing. With that, Arbor remembered. She hurriedly pulled Mo Lien and ran to the peach blossom tree. Was it that day? She took out that soft lump of dirt from the blue wand's wound and threw it on the ground. Before she left, she stepped on it and it stuck to the bottom of her shoe. She then casually raised her foot and rubbed it against a peach blossom tree, rubbing the soft lump of dirt under the peach blossom tree. It can't be. Arbor hurriedly squatted under the peach blossom tree and pulled at a thin and soft peach blossom petal under the tree. She saw that the thumb-sized lump of dirt was indeed stuck under the peach blossom tree. It's it, Master Silver. How could a normal lump of dirt possibly scratch the blue wand's wing? Coo, coo. Little Chick nodded furiously in full agreement. Chapter 754. Master, if I didn't guess wrongly. The sapling stretched out a branch and propped its chin up in deep thought. This isn't some ordinary lump of dirt at all. I suspect that it's sacred earth. Arbor's little jaw was about to drop. Mo Lien was also a little shocked. She turned her head to look at the sapling's pensive expression and happened to meet the sapling's 2 little black eyes that were embedded in the tree trunk. Sacred earth. Arbor waved at the little water child lying on the side. The water child let out a jubilant cry and swiftly hopped onto Xiaomu's palm, twisting its small, chubby body in high spirits on her palm. You're saying that that lump of dirt is the same as sacred earth? The sacred earth that surpasses the earth origin. Arbor didn't quite believe herself when she said this. She stretched out a finger and poked at the lump of dirt stuck to the foot of the peach blossom tree. The little lump of dirt actually let out a thin sound, and that lump of dirt rolled a little. Arbor's little hand shrank back. The little water child even cried out in alarm and stretched out its little watery hands to hug Arbor's wrist. It widened its eyes defensively. Be careful, Master, this is a monster. You're a monster yourself. The sapling slapped the little water child's onion head with its branch in annoyance. Guru. The little water child melted into a water blob. Its 2 blue eyes were embedded in that blob of water, ready to attack at any time. Be careful, Master. Dottie will protect you. What monster are you? What are you? Arbor. The sapling, Cho-Cho, was really angered by this idiot water. You said you were a drop of water, chattering away like a monster all day long, and now you dare to call someone else a monster. Sigh, go 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 go. The sapling swung its branch in annoyance and pushed the little water child to the side. Master, Cho-Cho feels a little tired. You take care of this sacred earth, I'm going to sleep for a while. Hey, don't go. You'll have to send us out later, Arbor said hurriedly. All right then. Master, hurry up. The sapling sat down under the peach blossom tree. Little ball, why are you so tired? Is it because I pulled Emolien in? Arbor couldn't care less about that lump of dirt. He hurriedly ran to check on Sapling's clone. Cho-Cho's main body couldn't move in the star field, but seeing how tired its doppelganger was, its main body couldn't be any better. Not entirely. Cho-Cho shook its head and lifted its branch to point at the surroundings. Master, look. Arbor looked around along its branches. Here. Why is the profound energy so thin? Cho-Cho pitifully nodded its little head. Master, once my profound energy is thin, Cho-Cho feels as if I can't breathe. My head is so dizzy and heavy. I want to sleep. Then rest for a while first. Arbor hurriedly reached out to comfort Little Ball. It must be because I just advanced here and absorbed all the profound energy in Paradise Planet. Arbor's gaze was slightly grave as he turned to look at Emolien. Emolien hurriedly said, then is there any way to replenish the profound energy here? Little Ball stealthily swept a glance at Emolien. It leaned weakly against the peach blossom tree and said, you don't have to care about me, let me slowly recover on my own. Sigh. Why are you being so eccentric? Hurry up and say what you have to say. I didn't succeed in reversing the situation. Herda. Chapter 755. Master, normal mystic energy is of no use to me. What I need is the purest mystic energy in the world to absorb, or the essence of mystic energy cultivated in a person's body. The more mellow and rich it is, the more effective it is for my recovery. As it spoke, its beady black eyes swept over Emolien from time to time. Arbor didn't hold back and gave the sapling's head a flick. This sentient tree was still thinking about Emolien. Just how smart was Emolien? When he saw the sapling in this state, he recalled that time in Qinghe town when a tree vine had stealthily crawled up his wrist to absorb his mystic energy. That time, it was this sapling's doing, right? Emolien grinned as she squatted down in front of the sapling, using a patient tone to say, it's not that I can't give you mystic energy, but you have to listen to me in the future. If I want to come in, you have to pull me in at any time. How about it? Deal. The sapling didn't say another word and immediately made the decision. Arbor slanted its beautiful eyes and glared at Cho-Cho, who was ignoring its master's will. The sapling immediately rolled its eyes and fell onto the peach tree. Master, I'm so tired, I can't even keep my eyes open. Your acting is so fake, doesn't your conscience hurt? Sapling, it doesn't hurt. What the hell is conscience? Can it be eaten? Emolien pursed her lips and smiled. She stretched out her wrist in front of the sapling and raised her phoenix eyes slightly. Hurry up. Cho-Cho cheered and its claws immediately climbed onto Emolien's wrist like an octopus and hugged her tightly. Arbor angrily glanced at the person and tree. Cho-Cho, give me a little more time. Don't go overboard. Seeing that the person and tree had already entered the state of transmitting mystic energy, Chao Mu helplessly rolled her eyes. She stood up and looked at the thin mystic energy floating in the air. She thought to herself, the mystic energy in the paradise can only be slowly replenished after she leaves and finds an opportunity to absorb mystic energy from the outside world and convert it to Cho-Cho. Cho-Cho, can't you absorb the mystic energy in the profound stones as a supplement? No, no. The little water child shook its head in place of Chocho and replied, Master Silver, Chocho's main body supports the entire star field. Actually, all the profound energy in this star region was closely related to Chocho's main body. For every portion of Master Silver used, Chocho's main body would consume a portion more. If its main body consumes too much energy and cannot be replenished in time, it will also affect the stability of the star field, and the paradise will also be damaged. There were always impurities in magnetite and spirit stones that weren't suitable for Chocho to absorb. Only the purest profound energy between heaven and earth could protect Chocho. Or for those with extremely high cultivation, the profound energy essence they cultivated could also help it recover quickly. Like you, Master Silver, the profound energy you cultivate is not good enough. The moment the little water child finished speaking, he felt that there was something wrong with what he said. Something was wrong. Before the round water ball could even jump, Arbor reached out and gave it a heavy knock on the head. What you mean is that the Xian energy in Master Silver's body is not good enough for the Xian energy in Master Silver's body. He let it slip. The water ball hurriedly rolled to remedy the situation. No, no, Master Silver, Dian Dian doesn't have the slightest intention of despising Master Silver. Ha! The corner of Arbor's mouth twitched and he glanced at the little water bowl. Other than the 2 supplements you mentioned, there are no other ways. Chapter 756. And there's also an extremely rare heavenly treasure called the Black Spirit Jade. It can replenish the energy of us 5 spirits. The little water ball chirped. However, Master Silver, the Black Spirit Jade is very hard to find. It's said that it's buried in the deepest part of a spirit stone mine, but very few people can find the existence of Black Spirit Jade in a spirit stone mine. Sigh. Black Spirit Jade. Arbor muttered to herself. Carrying the little water ball, she walked to the foot of the peach blossom tree and poked at the little clump of dirt that was lying dormant under the peach blossom tree. If you're the sacred ground that little ball spoke of, then flip over and let me see. The little water ball widened its eyes and stared nervously at the little clump of dirt. The little clump of dirt that had been motionless all this time, as if it was playing dead, suddenly moved and really flipped over. It moved from under the peach blossom tree to Arbor's feet with a gurgling sound. Arbor lowered her head and met the little water ball's eyes. Both of them cried out in their hearts at the same time, it really is a clump of dirt that has become a spirit. This peach blossom tree of mine is your doing, isn't it? A green vine quietly crept out from under Arbor's sleeve and whipped at the clump of dirt on the ground. Hurry up and show yourself. The little clump of dirt that was as thick as a thumb jumped and jumped, hiding behind the tree. After a long while, under Arbor's scolding, it stuck its head out from behind the tree. Arbor took a closer look and was almost angered to the point of laughing. This clump of dirt had turned into a square clump of yellow dirt. It had 2 black eyes and was timidly hiding behind the tree to look at her. Come here. Arbor rolled up her little sleeves and used the vine in her hand to draw a bright mark on the ground. Master, let me go catch it. The little water ball immediately helped the tyrant and stretched out its evil claws towards its brother. It spat out a rapidly spinning wave of water from its mouth. Like a water dragon, it bypassed the towering peach blossom tree and suddenly wrapped around the yellow soil block. When the clump of dirt saw the flood of water, it almost peed in fright. It hurriedly squatted down and completely buried itself under the peach blossom tree's roots, shrinking until there was no trace of it. Thus, the little water ball's mighty wave of water rushed all over the peach blossom tree with a splash. Mo Lien and Little Ball, who were under the tree, were drenched from head to toe. Arbor. Cough, cough, cough. Arbor raised her voice to reprimand and reprimanded, "Dotard, what are you doing? Don't spray." As she spoke, she hurriedly stepped forward, took out a clean white cloth from her inner world, and hurriedly wiped the water droplets on the man's face. Mo Lien opened his eyes slightly and abruptly grasped one of her fair and tender wrists, abruptly pulling her into his dripping embrace. "You did it on purpose, didn't you, baby?" Mo Lien blinked at the little fellow and unhurriedly unbuttoned her outer shirt. Her fingers then moved to her waist to undo her belt. Her expression was very captivating. "If you want to see your husband's body, just say it. Why did you have to make such a big wave of water and drench your husband? TSK, he's soaked." "Arbor, what can I say? This narcissistic man, I didn't want to see your body." Mo Lien's fingers gently tickled the little fellow's waist. Arbor couldn't help but burst out laughing. She twisted her little body and turned her head to look at him with a slightly red face. She reached out to hit him neither lightly nor heavily. "Hurry and dry yourself with the fire spirit. Heh, you got it wet. You're responsible for wringing it dry." Mo Lien moved closer to her neck and nuzzled her head under her hair. Chapter 757. Arbor reached out and pinched him on the waist. However, even when her fingers hurt, she couldn't pinch him. She was so angry that she scratched him on the waist as well. "Don't touch me." Mo Lien pulled her little hand to her face with a serious expression. She held it in her hands and kissed it twice. "Jojo, this is where you've been for the past 2 years, right?" Arbor was slightly startled, but then nodded. She reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. She stared at him with her dark eyes and said, "You? Are you angry?" "Why would I be angry?" Mo Lien was also slightly startled. Arbor gently bit her lips. I hid it from you. Do you blame me for not telling you about the Paradise Planet earlier?" Mo Lien stared at her, her eyes as gentle as water. "How could I? On the contrary, I'm very happy that Jojo was able to tell me such an important secret." He rubbed his wet head against her cheek. "Jojo, I'm very happy that you trust me so much. And I will absolutely not betray the trust you have in me, even if it means death." All right, you don't have to swear." Arbor reached out and covered his thin lips. She rolled her eyes and said, "Look, my Paradise Planet is very powerful. Ordinary people can't sense the aura of this profound domain at all. Moreover, she was very careful. When she was in front of others, she almost never went in and out of Paradise Planet, so as to avoid being targeted by people with ulterior motives. After all, no one knew if there really were strange people in this world who could see through the profound domain of others. It was best to be careful in everything. Moreover, this profound domain of hers was no ordinary profound domain. In the future, Mo Lien would know that this profound domain of hers was a large and strange star domain. Mo Lien hugged her and nodded. Her expression relaxed a little as she smiled and said, "Jojo, with such a life-saving mysterious domain, I can rest assured in the future. Mo Lien, the reason why you couldn't sense my aura before was because I didn't know before. I was afraid that you would leave me without a word. Now I know." Mo Lien reached out to cup her little face and planted a kiss on her soft little face. "In the future, I don't need to worry like this anymore." Chiao Mu pursed her small mouth and grumbled, "You've already reached an agreement with the sapling immediately." Mo Lien chuckled, and a green vine emerged from her sleeve. "Do you see that? You are now in a place where nothing can be removed. If you hide in the land of peach blossoms, I will follow you." Arbor's eyes suddenly widened. He turned his head to look at the little tray ant that was lying on the ground like a corpse. "Heh, you bastard." It had actually been snapped off by Mo Lien to become a doppelganger. This time, Mo Lien really could summon Little Tree at any time. As long as Little Tree didn't leave the Mo Kingdom capital, he could enter and leave Peach Blossom's planet as he pleased. Cho-Cho, you've recovered a little now. Hurry and dig out that dirt lump. Hurry and deal with it. Arbor hastily instructed. Seeing that its little master didn't blame it, Cho-Cho quickly jumped out and ran to the peach tree. It dug out the yellow dirt lump that was hiding underground in a matter of minutes and gave it a good beating without any explanation. It beat that piece of sacred soil until it pitifully reached out 2 dirt arms and hugged its square head, letting out trembling noises. Cho-Cho. Cho-Cho. Arbor reached out to lift Cho-Cho to the side and irritably hit it. Why are you so violent? Are you all right, dirt lump? Arbor expressionlessly stroked Cho-Cho's square head. The latter inexplicably shuddered for some reason. Chapter 758. When Master caressed it with a stoic face, she looked so scary. Crown Prince Mo also lowered his head to look at this lump of lus. He also caressed the lump of lus's squarish head in passing, his eyes full of watery glints of swords. Master, Master, Master Silver. Feeling that the man was even more difficult to deal with, the lump of soil waved its small hands and feet in a very human-like manner. With its square head, it ran to its little master's skirt and squatted down, looking like it was asking for protection and hugs. Little Water Ball saw this. Oh no, why was there another one acting cute here? It was already very unhappy that the little white snake was fighting with it for attention, all right? Mo Lien snorted softly. With a wave of his hand, a few inches of red flames circled around his hand. In an instant, the water on his and Jojo's bodies was dried. Little soil. Arbor lifted the square head of the sacred soil and placed it on the stone stool under the peach tree. What's wrong with this tree? I didn't do anything. The square head stretched out 2 thin soil arms and hurriedly waved them in front of Arbor. Master, this is the only good thing about the sacred soil. You can plant anything on it. No matter how difficult it is to plant, it will grow quickly. The little tree suddenly reached out and patted the tree trunk. Master, wait. Arbor glanced at it, only to see Cho-Cho go and come back quickly. She didn't know where it came from, but it quickly slipped back to her side, holding a seed on its branch. Master, Master, plant this longevity tree seed on the sacred soil. When it grows, I'll transplant it somewhere else. The little tree Cho-Cho waved its branches happily. Master, Master, you're really lucky. I've been thinking about how to plant the longevity tree for a long time now. It's very difficult to plant the longevity tree. Without the sacred soil, I feel that even if I keep hastening it, it won't be able to grow smoothly. It's all good now. Cho-Cho happily urged Arbor. Master, Master, hurry up. Once the longevity tree was planted in the ground, as long as it sprouted, Cho-Cho would be able to speed up the growth of the longevity tree. Furthermore, it would be able to absorb the longevity tree's pure energy during the process. Ahahaha. The pure elemental life force contained within the longevity tree was not as weak as the 10 or so winter fruit trees. The more Little Ball thought about it, the happier he got. As long as it absorbed a portion of the longevity tree's life force, it would definitely be able to immediately recover to its original state and recover all the profound energy in this paradise. Little Ball was really the best. Arbor didn't know what the spirit tree was thinking, but when he glanced at it, he felt that Cho-Cho was too enthusiastic. Master Silver, quickly plant it. Cho-Cho hurriedly urged again. Arbor glanced at the lump of dirt. You. Ah. The cube of soil immediately lay flat and turned into a clump of earthy yellow soil. It rolled over very spiritually. Arbor was holding that longevity tree seed. When she was burying it in the sacred soil, her fingertip was accidentally pricked by the seed. A drop of red blood was buried in the sacred soil along with the seed. Mo Lien swiftly pulled Arbor up and reached out to wipe her injured finger. At that moment, the sacred soil in front of them emitted a faint yellow luster. An earth particle instantly left the sacred soil and flew towards Arbor. Cho shouted, "Master, catch this essence earth." Chapter 759. Arbor's heart stirred. The life essence earth was the same as Little Water's life essence water. It could increase her cultivation. She did not have time to think further. With Cho's assistance, the life essence earth entered her body in a flash. It was quickly wrapped around by the little tree's branches and sucked into the mystic domain that suddenly opened up. At the same time, Arbor and Mo Lien felt at the same time that the paradise star they were standing on trembled slightly. Arbor could see that the entire star field had lit up for a moment. In the vast and boundless star field, a fist-sized main star was suspended high up in the center of the star field. 4 stars of different colors slowly revolved around the main star. Suddenly, they dimmed again. Little Water Child shook its body at the side, countless drops of water falling onto the sacred ground. In a few seconds, a thin sapling of the longevity tree broke out of the ground, burrowing out of the sacred ground and stretching its thin and weak body. Mo Lien and Xiao Mu both focused their eyes, and they subconsciously clasped their hands together. Then, they slowly moved their feet and slowly retreated backwards. Cho was excitedly stimulating the growth of the longevity tree at the side, absorbing the vigorous life force of the longevity tree at the same time. Its little tree face was filled with joy. In front of them, the longevity tree's sapling that had burrowed out of the sacred ground was gradually growing longer and thicker, its branches and leaves growing upwards. Countless emerald green leaves grew out of the tree trunk, until a flower bud quietly bloomed on the branch. The ball-shaped flowers released their buds one by one, releasing multicolored rays of light. Xiao Mu tilted her head up slightly, her gaze fixated on that longevity tree. The flowers of the longevity tree were actually so colorful. How could they be so beautiful? When those ball-shaped flowers bloomed, it was like countless fireworks were exploding in front of her eyes. So beautiful. His line of sight was filled with magnificent colors. It was as if the entire paradise star field had been lit up, releasing endless light in all directions. Under the longevity tree, there were clusters of flowers. A pair of immortal-like jade people looked at each other, from each other's eyes. They could see tenderness and sweetness. Chongqing and Mo Ruo would be together forever. Only with you in this life can immortality show its true meaning. Otherwise, it would just be a waste of time, a waste of time. Their gazes locked together, and everything in the world seemed to disappear before their eyes at this moment. Time and space no longer existed. Even the longevity tree that emitted a flourishing light was not as beautiful as the person in each other's hearts. Cho landed on the ground with a thud and lay at the foot of the longevity tree, panting heavily. Wow, the longevity tree's life force was indeed tenacious. Even after absorbing so much life force, it was still able to bloom flowers. Cho, what's wrong? Arbor's gaze shifted from Mo Lien's face to Cho, who was as bright as 3,000 candles. I'm fine. Cho stretched out its little paw and yawned tiredly. Master, I'll transplant the longevity tree next to this peach tree. Cho blinked its black beady eyes and said, it'll take a long time for the longevity tree to bloom before it bears longevity fruits. Arbor nodded indifferently and watched as Cho easily lifted the longevity tree and buried it next to the giant peach tree. This longevity tree was really tall. Its slender figure was a stark contrast to the giant peach tree next to it. Chapter 760. Chocho stretched out his hand and yawned. Master, I've sealed the essence earth in your mystic domain. You can slowly fuse with it like how you fused with the essence water. I'm afraid you'll need to spend 2 to 3 months to fuse with it this time. Are you also going into closed-door cultivation to prepare to advance? Arbor's brows twitched as he immediately sensed something. Chocho nodded. I'm not the only one who's going into closed-door cultivation. Lady Holy Water and this dirt lump are also going into closed-door cultivation. Master, this time, I might need a bit more time than last time. You have to be well and not have anything happen to you. Arbor's lips curled up slightly. His face was expressionless, but a trace of bitterness flooded his heart. What can happen to me? You also said the same thing last time, but didn't something still happen in the end? And it was a major matter, the Holy Water sect was completely uprooted. Arbor's eyes gradually turned icy, and he spat out a string of cold words. That kind of thing will never happen again. The people who hurt her would eventually pay with their blood. Chocho sighed and said earnestly, Master, I can't drag you into Paradise Planet in these 3 to 4 months, and you can't come in yourself either. You have to be extra careful. You mustn't get injured again and make me worry. Arbor walked up and picked up the little tray ant. He rubbed its small head that had 4 to 5 tender leaves. Don't worry. This time, no one can hurt me again. Chocho nodded cutely. Emisham. Then you can bring the little white snake out. Arbor shook his head. Let it rest properly here. It doesn't look like it's waking up at all. Perhaps it used up too much energy from before. Caw, caw. The little chick flapped its wings and flew onto Arbor's shoulder. It held its head high and puffed out its chest, looking disdainfully at the world. See. At crucial moments, you still have to rely on your Lord Qingwan. Chocho sleepily shook its head. All right, then you can bring Qingwan out. Be more careful, Master. Master, you have to be good. The little water baby strode forward with its short little legs, tugged at the corner of Arbor's skirt, raised its head and called out cutely. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on Jojo. Nothing can happen. Mo Lien jumped down from the stone block at the side, glanced at the little tray ant and the little water baby, and stepped forward to hold Arbor's little hand. Xiao Mu turned her head to meet his eyes. Chocho nodded repeatedly. Master, if I can successfully advance to the late stage of the infant stage and step into the growth stage this time, then I'll be able to do so. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to open the other stars in the starfield. Really? Arbor was delighted. Perhaps, but at the very least, I need to enter the growth stage before I can open the other powerful stars. Ah. Chocho fell down from the longevity tree in exhaustion. Master, let me send you out. Be careful and don't let Chocho worry. Chocho, I brought Chocho out with me. These few months, I left it alone in the treehouse without anyone to take care of it. I'm worried. Okay. Chocho, I'm not in a hurry to open the stars. Take care of yourself, don't be greedy when you advance. Arbor's lips moved slightly, and he raised his hand to pat the little tree's head. I'll wait for you to come out. Chocho nodded, shook its 2 branches, and sent the 2 of them out together with Qingwan and the little white squirrel. Chapter 761. As soon as the 2 of them came out, they choked on a mouthful of dust. With a flick of their sleeves, they swept away the hazy gray air in front of them and lightly coughed twice. The perfectly fine wing room in the city lord's estate had now become a wasteland. Mo Lien lowered her head to glance at his little one and pursed her lips into a smile. Jojo, we have to change rooms tonight. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. Hui Feng passed through the window with a sound. When he saw the two of them, his gaze relaxed slightly, and he exhaled. Although he had received the Crown Prince's message earlier that he and the Crown Princess were fine, Hui Feng still felt uneasy without seeing the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess with his own eyes. This subordinate came too late to rescue your highness. All right. Mo Lien waved her hand and said, the Crown Princess and I are both fine. Are there any casualties among the hidden guards outside? In reply to your highness. Only a few people were bitten by venomous snakes, but they have already taken the antidote and are fine for the time being. Hui Feng cupped his hands and said, this subordinate dispatched people to search Bailon City and discovered traces of several people from Shantian Prefecture. This subordinate was incompetent and was still a bit late, so we weren't able to catch those fish that escaped the net from Shantian Prefecture. Will your highness please mete out punishment? Lu Yiji's group's whereabouts are strange and cunning. Besides, you aren't their match, so don't make unnecessary sacrifices. Arbor shook her head and said, that midget who came to assassinate me this time is from Shantian Prefecture. He should be the twin brother of that midget who delusionally tried to poison the Crown Prince in the Qin estate last time. I think they look exactly the same. Shantian Prefecture again. Mo Lien snorted. These fish that escaped the net from Shantian Prefecture had been hiding in nooks and crannies for the past 2 years, so it was a bit difficult to find them. No hurry, just take your time to find them. Arbor was expressionless. What she wanted was to uproot them completely. What about that midget? In reply to the Crown Princess, only half of the midget's corpse is left. Should he be hung at Bailon City's city gate and flogged for 3 days and nights for the crime of great disrespect? Arbor shook his head. No need. His corpse is so ugly and bloody. If we hang it at the city gate, we don't want to scare the people coming and going. Hui Feng lowered his head and chuckled as he cupped his fists in salute. Yes. Then this subordinate will go and burn him, so that he won't turn into a corpse and cause trouble. Arbor nodded, and Mo Lien held his little hand as they walked out of the dusty and dilapidated room. City Lord Lin, who had heard the news, repeatedly thanked the heavens and personally led the two of them to the newly prepared room to rest. At this time, it was already deep into the night. Because the city lord's estate had suddenly been attacked, it had been tossed around until the middle of the night. Bailon City had even issued several curfews in succession to strictly investigate the people who left the city. That dead gnome knows how to burrow. Those fish from Shantian Prefecture that escaped the net must have left through the underground passageway. Arbor pondered for a moment before saying, City Lord, go find some experts in underground reconnaissance and find that secret passageway that leads outside the city. Hurry up and seal it so as to avoid being exploited by thieves. Yes. City Lord Lin's forehead was about to break out in sweat. The Crown Princess's successive mishaps in his Bailon City made him so anxious that he was like an ant on a hot pan, constantly running in circles. Thus, he listened to Arbor's instructions and sent people to find experts in underground reconnaissance overnight to hurry to the place where Lu Yiji and the others had previously stayed at in Shantian Prefecture to investigate the traces of the secret passageway. Arbor and Mo Lien also felt a bit tired after being tossed around for so long, so they each washed up and returned to their rooms to sleep. Chapter 762. It wasn't until noon the next day that Lin Yongyi personally came to report that he had indeed found the secret passage leading out of the city and had sent people to deal with it. Mo Lien walked into the room. She immediately saw the little girl tilting her head and using a small spoon to feed a white squirrel a life-prolonging medicinal liquid. Mo Lien naturally recognized this furry white squirrel. What's wrong with it? 2 years ago, it blocked a fatal blow from a mystic cultivator from Shantian Prefecture for me, and then it fell into a coma. Arbor reached out to stroke the little white squirrel's fur. I gave it life-prolonging medicinal liquid, but it was useless. Jojo, I don't think it's seriously injured. The Crown Prince walked up and pulled a stool to sit next to Arbor. He reached out to pinch the little white squirrel's small ears. This little beast isn't as simple as it appears on the surface. I feel that it is advancing in rank. Ah. Arbor opened her mouth in shock, but then shook her head repeatedly. Impossible. Cho-Cho and the others advance in rank at most 3 to 4 months. This little guy has already been unconscious for more than 2 years. How can it be advancing in rank for more than 2 years? If it's not advancing in rank, then it's recovering. Recovering? Arbor glanced at the Crown Prince in shock. What do you mean? Prince Mo reached out to grasp her small hand. Do you think that this little beast is just an ordinary mystic beast? No. Arbor immediately shook her head and said bluntly, when I first saw it, I only thought that it was an ordinary forest little beast. It can't be called a mystic beast at all. Prince Mo immediately turned his face and couldn't help but laugh loudly. Jojo. You really need to properly train your, eyesight. Eyesight. Arbor snorted and didn't give him any face. She even rolled her eyes at him. This little beast most likely isn't a mystic beast. Maybe it's a spirit beast, or maybe a divine beast. What? Arbor's round, black eyes widened. He shook his head and said, You're thinking too much. Let me tell you. My little squirrel. It only knows how to identify magnetite and mine magnetite. Other than that, I've never seen it have any special abilities. Arbor tilted his head and thought for a while. Baiting people is also a skill. It carries a deadly poison, but according to my research, this deadly poison can only kill 5 or 6 people at most. Also, mystic cultivators above level 11 will greatly increase their defense against poison. Mo Lien lifted the little white squirrel onto her lap and turned to look at Arbor with a smile. Jojo, why don't you feed it some strong medicine? For example, the previous batch of poisonous snakes. Cut open their bodies and take out their gallbladders. Arbor's eyes lit up. Will it work? It's better than feeding it life-extending elixir all day. That batch of poisonous snakes is considered a mystic beast with some success, so there must be some power essence left in their gallbladders. Mo Lien lifted the little white squirrel up. In short, it won't harm it. The two looked at each other. Arbor seemed to have made up his mind and nodded vigorously. Thus, Mo Lien ordered people to take the gallbladders of the dead snakes that attacked Arbor and feed them to the little white squirrel every day. In less than 2 days, the little white squirrel's body indeed underwent a strange change. Its fluffy tail grew longer, its fur became glossy, and its entire body emitted a lustrous white light. Chapter 763. Seeing that the snake gallbladder was effective, Arbor hastily carried the little white squirrel and ran to find Mo Lien, discussing with him how to catch more mystic beasts to feed the little squirrel. Mo Lien couldn't help but reach out in amusement and hug this impatient little one. There aren't any mystic beasts in the vicinity, but there might be zombies. Mystic beasts usually only appear in the Mystic Beast Forest, which is a bit too far from here. We still have to hurry back after we're done with the matters here. In this case, you should be at ease. That squirrel wasn't injured at all. Perhaps that person's palm strike 2 years ago just happened to hit the seal on its body. It has been recovering these past 2 years. Mo Lien lowered his head to look at Jojo, his expression somewhat solemn. I suspect that its original body isn't like this at all. What kind of original body would need such a long time to recover? Arbor stared blankly at him. Would it be like this? Mo Lien laughed in spite of himself and pressed his forehead against hers. His dark phoenix eyes roamed around as he gazed deeply at her. Jojo, don't worry. Even if you don't feed it, it will slowly recover on its own. It'll just take a bit longer. If we can find something that can help it recover, such as snake gallbladders or mystic beast cores, perhaps it can help and speed up its recovery. But time is tight for our trip, and we still have to return to the Mo Kingdom capital to celebrate the new year. How about this? I'll have Morning Sunlight Pavilion search and bring over all the usable mystic beast cores for you. After we celebrate the new year, we can find an opportunity to make a trip to the Mystic Beast Forest and help find even more Mystic Beast cores. Arbor nodded repeatedly, gazing at Mo Lien with sparkling eyes. In that case, Chirpy should be able to recover very quickly and wake up, right? That's right. Mo Lien cupped her small face and planted a kiss on her pink and tender cheek. After the new year, I'll go with you. Your Highness. Lin Yongyi's anxious voice suddenly sounded from outside the room. Mo Lien raised her hand and pinched Arbor's little face, loosened her waist, and casually straightened her robe and sat down. Come in. As soon as Lin Yongyi entered, he hurriedly greeted the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess was wearing a white robe and was holding a fat, snow-white ball in her arms. She sat beside the Crown Prince and glanced at him. Lin Yongyi didn't dare to look, nor did he see clearly what was in the Crown Princess' arms. He only bowed respectfully, took 2 steps back, and said with a lowered head, Your Highness. Something happened at the farm this morning. For some reason, the people in the farm are all vomiting and having diarrhea. They can't get off the ground at all. Where's Hong Yaowei? Hong Yaowei has the same symptoms. Other than Hong Yaowei, the other 6 or 7 commissioners who are responsible for the growth of the yellow stems all have vomiting and diarrhea. Even the guards, maids, and servants of the farm are all the same. Mo Lien stood up and said, Let's go to the farm. He was about to turn around and tell Jojo that he was leaving for a while, when he saw the little fellow running to his side with a chubby squirrel in her arms. She looked up and said, Let's go together. Mo Lien had always agreed to his little emperor baby's request. When he heard this, he didn't think much and nodded. Okay. This humble subject will go prepare the carriage for the Crown Princess. No need, just ride a horse. Arbor didn't care so much. Mo Lien smiled slightly, reached out to take the little fellow's little hand, and walked out quickly. Prepare the horse. See you tomorrow. Chapter 764. The two rode on the same horse and headed to the farm. Lin Yongyi followed with Old Man Sun, explaining to the Crown Prince what happened at the farm along the way. According to Lin Yongyi, everything was fine at the farm yesterday. Those troublemakers also didn't dare to cause trouble under the Crown Prince's tyrannical suppression. Although the group led by Hong Yaowei was angry, they didn't dare to cause trouble at the farm. After all, no one wanted to lose their heads for no reason. What did they eat this morning? Prince Mo asked faintly. Lin Yongyi followed behind Prince Mo on his horse and hurriedly said, Breakfast was prepared by the kitchen. But now, everyone in the farm, including the people in the kitchen, is vomiting and having diarrhea. What did the doctor say? The doctor went early in the morning. He wrote a prescription and boiled medicine, but it doesn't seem to be effective. As they spoke, the group quickly arrived at the entrance of the farm. Mo Lien dismounted and reached out to carry Chow Chow, who was playing with the little squirrel with her head lowered, off the horse. His arm very naturally looped around her slender waist, and he quickly walked into the farm with her in his arms. Lin Yongyi and the others hurriedly followed. As soon as they entered, they saw the guards of the city lord's estate who were originally guarding the door also collapsed on the ground, quietly crying out in pain. Arbor glanced at the guards on the ground and was gently pulled by Mo Lien around his waist. His footsteps involuntarily moved forward. Many people were lying in disorder in the farm, each of them half curled up and holding their stomachs as they rolled around. Xiao Yi led a dozen members of the night pavilion and quickly walked out of the house to greet the crown prince. They all bowed in unison. What's going on? Prince Mo's gaze swept over them. Your Highness, we didn't eat the food and water on the farm. Xiao Yi bowed and said, our brothers are all fine. The doctor is here, the doctor is here. Doctor, I'm still in pain. Can you write another prescription? When the doctor passed by the flower bed, he was stopped by a woman who begged. This old man has already written all the medicine that can be prescribed. The way I see it, it doesn't seem as simple as having a stomachache. The old doctor shook his head repeatedly and said, this old man feels that this is rather similar to the symptoms of being poisoned. It hurts. My stomach hurts. Mother. A little boy who had fallen on the side of the dirt road was rolling on the ground and crying. Unfortunately, his parents couldn't even take care of themselves right now. Arbor quickly stuffed the little white squirrel in his arms into Mo Lien's hands and waved in the direction of the little boy. Bring him over. The boy was only 7 or 8 years old. At this time, he was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. His face was dirty with snot and tears. Lin Yongyi hurriedly took out a clean handkerchief and said in front of Arbor, Crown Princess, let me do it. As she spoke, she hurriedly wiped the boy's dirty face with a white cloth and brought him in front of Qiao Mu. Where does it hurt? Arbor reached out to feel the boy's pulse. The boy kept shaking his arm as he cried and mumbled, it hurts everywhere. It hurts everywhere. It hurts everywhere. Lin Yongyi, old man's son, and the others couldn't help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Arbor didn't get angry. He raised his hand and patted the little boy's head. You're a man. What are you crying for? Stop crying. The boy stopped crying with reddened eyes, but his eyes were still filled with tears. He looked pitifully at Arbor and said, Sister, if you're in as much pain as I am, you'll cry too. Chapter 765. What nonsense are you talking about? City Lord Lin pulled a long face, scaring the child into silence. Arbor waved his hand at Lin Yongyi, took out a long silver needle from his needle bag, and waved it in front of the little boy. Of course elder sister won't cry. If elder sister is in pain, she will seal her acupoints with silver needles and seal her 5 senses. That way, she won't feel pain. The little boy's eyes followed the silver needle in Arbor's hand. Elder sister, are you going to give me a needle? Will it stop hurting after the needle? Then are you scared? No. Go ahead. The boy reached out his hand and patted his chest hard. Arbor inserted the needle without hesitation. After 2 needles, the little boy drowsily closed his eyes. Move him into the room. Give me a pen and paper. Arbor stood up and said. Jojo. Do you know what kind of poison they were poisoned with? Mo Lien's eyes curved slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. It's not poison. This child has no symptoms of fever, vomiting, diarrhea, and unbearable abdominal pain. I can't find any toxins in his body, if I'm not wrong. They should have mistakenly ingested Edelweiss. How is that possible? The old doctor flung his sleeves hard. This is clearly some kind of heat poison. We should buy some pills to clear away heat and detoxify for them. No need. Arbor took the pen and paper handed over by old man's son and wrote down a few herbs on the paper. City Lord, I'll have to trouble you with these herbs. Let the people in the pharmacy boil them into a decoction according to the prescription. Crown Princess, you're too kind. This is the duty of this humble official. This humble official will immediately send people to do it. Lin Yongyi took the prescription and hurriedly ordered 2 confidants to go to the pharmacy to get the herbs and boil them. When the old doctor saw that Arbor dared to reject his diagnosis at such a young age, he was so angry that he picked up his medicine box and walked out. What's wrong with him? Xiao Mu looked up at Mo Lian in bewilderment, and she also reached out to take the little white squirrel that she had stuffed into his hands. He saw that you were young and didn't believe in your medical skills. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he flew into a rage out of humiliation and could only leave. Arbor said indifferently, I don't need others to believe me. Idiot. Mo Lian's heart skipped a beat. She raised her hand and stroked the hair on her little head. I don't care if others believe it or not. I believe it. Xiao Mu glanced back at him from the corner of her eye, but when she retracted her gaze, the corner of her mouth turned up imperceptibly. Soon, the pharmacy staff made a large tub of decoction according to Arbor's prescription. Arbor looked at the people lining up to get the medicine and couldn't help but mutter to himself, don't you think it's a little strange? Why is that person making such a big fuss? Is it just to make people vomit, have diarrhea, and have stomach aches? The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Mo Lian's eyes narrowed slightly. She secretly pulled Arbor's little hand and turned to give Lin Yongyi a look. The 3 of them quickly walked to the fields behind the farm. Your Highness, you suspect that this person is just creating a diversion and his main goal is to destroy a large area of the yellow pole field. Lin Yongyi's steps suddenly stopped. His body staggered slightly and he ran forward a few steps. He looked at the withered yellow pole and cried out agitatedly, how could this be? Ah! How could this be? Lin Yongyi hurriedly jumped onto the ridge and ran into the field. Chapter 766. Someone, search the manor from top to bottom and see who isn't in the manor right now. The Crown Prince's eyes darkened deeply. Arbor could sense the Crown Prince's fury bursting forth, and she scratched his palm with her small hand to pacify him. As far as her eyes could see, a large patch of withered crops was lying askew in the field. She didn't know that before today, the yellow stalks in this field had been growing brilliantly, and it was almost time for harvest. Grief welled up in Lin Yongyi's heart, and he couldn't resist kneeling in the field and bawling his eyes out. It's over, it's over, it's over, everything is over. The yellow stalks that he had spent so much time and effort on, enough to feed all of Bailon City's citizens, were destroyed by someone just like that. Your Highness, Your Highness. Shao Yi hastily returned with another youth and reported through gritted teeth, Your Highness, it's Feng Manyun. Feng Manyun and her maid, Xiangqin, have both disappeared. Prince Mo was startled. He simply didn't remember this person called Feng Manyun. Your Highness, it's that Celestial Medicine Valley's physician Feng who disturbed the Crown Princess's secluded cultivation when you ordered her not to stay in the city lord's estate a few days ago. Seeing that his master clearly didn't remember, Hui Feng quickly reminded him. It's her. Recalling Feng Manyun's coquettish and pretentious gaze of adoration, Prince Mo felt his stomach churn incessantly. Physician Feng. Lin Yongyi, who was sitting on a piece of barren land, suddenly jumped up and bellowed furiously, Physician Feng did it. Where is she? Where is she right now? Vicious woman. Look at what she's done. Why have all the yellow stalks in this field withered to death? Did she use some kind of vicious medicine to poison the entire land to the point that it became a wasteland? Ah, my yellow stalks. Lin Yongyi sprawled on the withered ground, gripping a handful of black soil as tears streamed down his face in dejection. Lin Yongyi was regretting his actions to death right now. If he hadn't felt some sympathy for Physician Feng back then, he wouldn't have ended up in this situation today. That day, when he received the Crown Prince's order to chase Feng Manyun out of the city lord's estate, he couldn't bear to let her wander the streets, so he secretly dispatched her to the manor. Who would have thought that he had nurtured a tiger that would bite him back? Lin Yongyi slapped himself in the face. At this moment, he was filled with regret, but he was powerless to reverse the situation. As expected, he was not a person who could accomplish great things. If he had received the Crown Prince's order and chased this poisonous woman out of the manor, who cared if she died or not, then how could he have ruined such a good harvest today? Ah 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 ah. Lin Yongyi pounded the ground and cried bitterly. Arbor's eyebrows moved slightly. Based on my conjecture, she must have ground the edelweiss into powder and scattered it into the well. She must have done something to the drinking water of the manor. This vicious woman. Old man's son spat angrily. How many wells do you have here? Take me there, Arbor suddenly said. This person is narrow-minded and vicious. I reckon he still has some tricks up his sleeve. Arbor's lips curled up slightly. Lin Yongyi raised his hand to give himself another huge slap before scrambling to the Crown Prince. He wailed miserably, Your Highness, it's this humble official's fault, this humble official is slow-witted. All right. Stop wailing and howling here. Go see if Hong Yao's abdominal pain has recovered yet. If it has, then have him immediately bring people down to the ground. If they can't recover the yellow stalks, we will have their heads. Mo Lien declared gravely. Lin Yongyi promptly crawled to the manor's forecourt, looking for Hong Yao with reddened eyes. Chapter 767. Crown Princess, please follow this old man. Meanwhile, old man's son led the way at the front, bringing the Crown Princess, the Crown Prince, and the others to one of the wells. Old man's son ordered a sturdy man to fetch a bucket of well water and bring it to Arbor. When Arbor picked up the water ladle, Mo Lien reached over and rolled up her loose sleeve slightly. Arbor scooped up a ladle of water and sniffed it before casually sprinkling a pinch of medicinal powder in it. After a light sizzle, the water inside the ladle instantly turned a thick black color, and a foul odor wafted out, causing everyone to retreat a few steps. Arbor shook her sleeves and sprinkled some more medicinal powder in, dispelling the foul odor in the water. She then turned to old man's son and said, Quickly inform everyone in the manor that they can't drink water for the time being. Jojo, is the powder of the tinder grass in this well water the one you mentioned? Mo Lien asked gravely. No, it's highly toxic. Arbor's expression also turned grave, and she said coldly with a smirk, Feng Manyun probably poisoned it again before she left. This water has been laced with a type of highly toxic poison that can cause a person to bleed from their 7 orifices and die an unnatural death with just a single mouthful. Old man's son jumped in fright, and he hastily instructed those 2 fearful sturdy lads to bring this news to everyone in the manor and the forecourt. Isn't Celestial Medicine Valley a place to treat illnesses and save people? The poison that it has developed is different from the usual. I will need about 7 to 8 minutes to dispel the poisoned water here. Other than this well water, are there other wells? Yes. There's another one behind it. There's another one, which is a channel specially used to irrigate farmland. The vicious woman wouldn't have also done something to that, right? It's very possible. Old man's son's eyes bulged, and he couldn't resist cursing, this vicious woman. She's simply deranged. Alright, you don't need to accompany me here. After I'm done detoxifying the poison in the well, I'll gather all of you. After Arbor finished speaking, he winked at Mo Lien. Actually, why would she need 15 minutes to detoxify the poison? While speaking, she had already restored the well water to its original state. After old man's son and the others left, she took Mo Lien's hand and walked towards another well behind them. Mo Lien, I wonder if this bit of sacred soil of mine, combined with the sacred water's effects, can restore your yellow pole field. Xiao Mu took out a small cloth and unraveled it, revealing a pinch of soil inside. After exchanging glances with Xiao Mu, Mo Lien immediately revealed a smile. Quickly try it. Let's go. The two of them first went to detoxify the other well, then walked towards the channel beside the ridge. Meanwhile, giddy up, giddy up. Xiang Qin held the reins as she drove the carriage. She lowered her head to look at her hand, which was slightly red and swollen from being scratched by the reins. She then turned her head to look into the carriage. Mississippi. We're about to leave the city. Feng Manyun had wrapped herself in the quilt, and her hands and feet twitched from time to time. She scolded with a crooked mouth, "Hurry, hurry, hurry. Quickly leave the city, leave the city." Xiang Qin sighed and quickly whipped the horse, driving the carriage out of Bailon City. As soon as they left the city, they naturally arrived at a messy shanty town. Normally, Feng Manyun would still be patient enough to greet these people, but right now, she wasn't in the mood at all. Especially when she recalled how she had been forced to grovel in front of that little bitch several days ago under everyone's watchful eyes. Her face was filthy and her whole body was humiliated. It was as if her heart had been scalded by fire, and it couldn't help but burn. Chapter 768. Physician Feng, Physician Feng. The assistant manager in charge of the tent district safety saw a carriage passing by him the moment he lifted the tent curtain. The carriage curtain was lifted by the wind, and when he saw Feng Manyun's face, he hastily chased up to stop the carriage. Xiang Qin could only helplessly stop the carriage. She shifted her gaze to the assistant manager and asked impatiently, "Assistant manager, why are you blocking our Mrs. carriage?" Physician Feng, it's truly great to see you." The assistant manager cheerfully called out, "Physician Feng, quickly get off the carriage and take a look. Do you still remember the patient you visited a few nights ago? His condition seems to have worsened. Why don't you take a look again?" "Apologies, assistant manager, but we are in a hurry to return to Celestial Medicine Valley." Xiang Qin rolled her eyes at the assistant manager irritably and raised her horsewhip. "Will you please make way?" "Tisk, that won't do. Physician Feng. How can you be like this? You have to go all the way to saving a person, right?" The assistant manager tangled with the two people and blocked the carriage, unwilling to leave. As they spoke, many commoners also walked out of their tents to watch the commotion. Upon hearing that Physician Feng had come, the commoners all gathered around in great delight. Feng Manyun abruptly lifted the curtain, and her ghastly pale small face wrapped in the quilt abruptly appeared before the assistant manager. She abruptly cracked a crooked smile and shrieked at the assistant manager, "Why are you so annoying? Scram! Scram! Scram!" The assistant manager was startled by Feng Manyun's malevolent appearance, and he subconsciously retreated 2 steps back. He smacked his lips in bewilderment and stammered, "Physician Feng, why are you so angry?" It's fine if you don't want to see him. Is there a need to treat him like this?" The assistant manager grumbled before moving to the side in displeasure. "Physician Feng, is it Physician Feng who came?" At this time, a young woman suddenly rushed out of the tent in front and pounced to block Feng Manyun's carriage, wailing, "Physician Feng, I beg you to take a look at my husband again. A few days ago, you said that he was already fine. But just now, he coughed up blood again. Dr. Feng, I beg you." Feng Manyun, who was wrapped in the bed's blankets, looked askew at that young woman. Suddenly, she leaned forward and screeched with a twisted expression, "Scram! Get the hell out of here! Get away from me, you piece of trash!" Stupid woman. Unruly people. You only deserve to live in a pigsty like this for the rest of your life. Young miss, young miss. Xiangqin was shocked. She hurriedly moved into the carriage from the driver's seat and went forward to cover her young miss mouth. Xiangqin turned her head and saw everyone's shocked expressions. She hurriedly waved her hand and said awkwardly, "Miss is also sick. Some of them are delirious. Don't force them. Hurry up and let us leave. I really didn't expect Dr. Feng to be such a person who fishes for fame. You were just pretending to be nice to us before, right? Ha, now you've completely revealed your true colors." The group of grannies and sisters-in-law who were originally greeting Feng Manyun with smiles in front of the carriage also turned around and returned to their tents in a huff. Feng Manyun, who was wrapped in a cotton blanket, watched everyone's departing figures sinisterly. Suddenly, she lifted the blanket and sneered at the assistant manager, "You. Take me there." Chapter 769. The assistant manager was naturally overjoyed that Feng Manyun suddenly changed her mind and wanted to see the patient, so he didn't fuss over her rude and unreasonable attitude anymore. Mississippi Xiangqin was the clearest about her miss's current state. Her mind was also a bit muddled from the stimulation she received a few days ago, and she still hadn't recovered yet. How could she still have the energy to see some patient? Feng Manyun arched her back as she got down from the carriage. The corners of her mouth and the tips of her eyes twitched unharmoniously, and she walked towards the tent in front of her with an aggressive and unreasonable expression. Underneath her sleeve was a slender silver needle dipped in poison. These lowly commoners actually dared to question her medical skills again and again. These lowly bastards should just die. Fine, weren't they questioning her? Ah. Weren't they thinking that her medical skills were inferior and couldn't treat people? Fine then. She would thoroughly kill that lowly commoner today and just let him die. Kill him, kill him. Kill him. A voice kept nagging at Feng Manyun in her mind. Feng Manyun's eyes and mouth were all crooked as she walked forward with her neck stretched out, looking like she was neurotic. Swish. Feng Manyun forcefully lifted the curtain in front of her, and the silver needle in her hand flashed under the sunlight. Roar! An enormous mouth that grinned all the way to his ears abruptly appeared in front of her. Before she could react, that person had already pounced at her and hugged her body with astonishing strength. The other party's iron-like hand clamped down on her left arm and bit down on it, chewing the flesh raw. Feng Manyun was in so much pain that she trembled all over. "Miss!" Xiangqin let out a heart-wrenching shriek. The young married woman also shrieked, "Hubby! Hey, don't go over! Don't go over!" The assistant manager reacted quickly and grabbed Xiangqin and the young woman. He took a few steps back and shouted, someone come quickly. Someone has mutated, someone has mutated. Ah, ah. Let go, let go, let go. Feng Manyun only felt that the other party had bitten off a chunk of flesh from her arm, and she was so frightened that she shuddered all over. The sturdy man hauled at her small face, and with a crack, he actually broke Feng Manyun's left arm. Ah, my hand, ah. Save me. Save me. Xiangqin, Xiangqin. In the midst of Feng Manyun's panic, the silver needles in her hand had long fallen off somewhere. Miss! Miss! Xiangqin was eager to protect her master. She threw away the assistant manager's hand and casually picked up a wooden stick. With a loud shout, she smashed it towards the strong man's back. Let go of Miss. Let go of Miss. Oh! The brawny man let out a roar that sounded like a human, but not a human. He suddenly turned his head and stared fiercely at Xiangqin with his bulging eyes. Plop. After suddenly losing the brawny man's grip, Feng Manyun clutched the wound on her left arm and collapsed to the ground with a plop. The stench of urine wafted from her body. Xiang Qin hugged the rod and trembled like a sieve. She stared at the bulging eyes of the burly man and swallowed her saliva. Her forehead was covered in sweat as if she had just been fished up from a river. It was still the assistant manager who saw the opportunity and kicked Xiang Qin over, just in time to avoid the claw that the brawny man had pounced at her. The 10 district's guards had already rushed over after hearing the news. Several dozen guards donned battle helmets and were fully armed with sabers, swords, and clubs as they surrounded this mutated brawny man at the edge of the tent. Chapter 770. How was this possible? How was this possible? This person clearly didn't die, so why did he suddenly mutate? He was still fine earlier. Feng Manyun, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, subconsciously pulled down her tattered sleeve to cover up the wound on her left arm with all her might. Her severed arm drooped down, and the bite wound was excruciatingly painful. Feng Manyun barely propped herself up and crawled backwards. It's fine, she'll be fine. Feng Manyun slowly shrunk backwards with a face drenched in sweat and tears. Until a piercing voice rang beside her. Someone come quickly. Physician Feng was bitten by a zombie. No, I didn't, it's not. It's not a zombie, he's not a zombie. 5 to 6 burly men swarmed towards her and twisted her arm in reverse. They abruptly shoved her, pressing her face firmly against the filthy tent. Ah! Feng Manyun shrieked as if she had lost her mind, and she kept twisting her arm as she shouted sternly, "Let go of me, let go of me, let go of me. Let go of me. Be careful not to get scratched by her." The assistant manager's pupils contracted when he saw the woman's deranged state. Don't, assistant manager, don't. Xiang Qin hastily went up to tug at the assistant manager's arm. Let go of my miss. Miss is also a victim. You can't let go of her. Look at her arm. The women stared at Feng Manyun's left arm, which was dripping with blood continuously, in horror. Let go of me, you bunch of cursed idiots. Lowly people. How dare you treat me like this? I won't let you off. Feng Manyun shrieked viciously, and her arms kept twisting as she tried to break free from the burly men's control. Bang! One of the burly men decisively punched her on the head. Feng Manyun's head tilted, and her eyeballs rolled around. She only felt her vision darken, and she gradually lost consciousness as she slumped into the crook of a burly man's arm. Tie her up first. The assistant manager directed those burly men to find several sturdy ropes to bind Feng Manyun. Xiang Qin was bawling her eyes out, and she knelt before the assistant manager with disheveled hair. Assistant manager, I beg you, please don't harm our miss. Xiang Qin, your miss has already been bitten by a zombie. She'll mutate very soon and become like that person. The assistant manager's face was filled with horror as he pointed at the mutated man who was being guarded by dozens of heavily armored guards. She won't. Miss won't lose her mind. Young Miss will be fine, assistant manager, you have to believe me. Miss is one of the top 50 physicians in the Celestial Medical Valley. She will definitely be able to cure herself. Xiang Qin scrambled to the vice manager's feet and hugged his leg as she cried out, before we left the valley this time, Mrs. Master gave Miss a profound-grade medicinal pill that can cure all kinds of illnesses. Assistant manager, Miss her, assistant manager. Her. A black rank pill was a legendary item, and it could be considered the treasure of every major pill house. As expected of Celestial Medicine Valley, any random disciple could possess a black rank pill. Even members of the pill union might not necessarily possess this kind of black rank pill. Emichim. Xiangqin wiped away the tears on her cheeks with her sleeve and nodded repeatedly. It's true, assistant manager. I'm not lying to you, it's true. Miss has a black rank pill on her, she does. Chapter 771. The assistant manager couldn't help but be skeptical. Where is that black rank pill right now? I can't say where it is, but as long as you wake Miss up and let Miss take this black rank pill, then she will definitely be fine, Xiangqin said with certainty. The assistant manager had people restrain the trussed-up Feng Mannion first. Although you say this, for safety's sake, I can't completely believe your words for the time being. Let's tie her up first. Assistant manager. Xiangqin creased her brows and was about to speak when two sturdy women went up and grabbed her arms. Behave yourself. Roar. In the open space next to the tent, the mutated burly man was tied up by several dozen guards with 3 to 4 arm-thick ropes, and he roared furiously at the sky. The city lord's estate's guards each held a rope firmly in their hands, and they simultaneously exerted their strength with a roar to restrain the burly man's movements. The mutated burly man roared several times as he tugged at the ropes around his limbs with all his might. He raised his hands above his head and opened his huge mouth to roar. 7 to 8 heavily armored city lords' estate's guards were actually lifted up by the strength of his arms. Their feet abruptly left the ground, and they flailed about with shocked expressions. The remaining dozen or so guards instantly tightened the ropes around their arms, and they were dragged forward several steps by the mutated burly man's brute force. Their feet were firmly hooked to the ground, and they scraped up thick sand marks. Roar! The mutated burly man raised his head and roared furiously. Suddenly, he pulled over a nearby guard and snapped him into two, kicking him to the side like trash. Husband! The young woman's vision darkened, and she fainted on the spot from fright. During this tug and pull, several armored city lords' estate's guards were no match for the mutated burly man's boundless strength, and they were pulled to the side and piled together like a human pyramid. The assistant manager hastily had people bring out bows and arrows while muttering, "Release the arrows, release the arrows, release the arrows." Swish, swish, swish. Several iron arrowheads pierced through the burly man's body, but the burly man didn't feel any pain. Instead, such an action angered him even more. An inhuman roar came from his mouth, and he suddenly raised his left arm. Several guards of the city lord's mansion followed the force of his pull and pounced over. They were about to pounce on the burly man and be torn to pieces. Suddenly, a silver light flashed across the sky and pierced into the mutated brawny man's left eye with a swoosh, causing a terrifying hissing sound. The mutated man raised his head and roared as he staggered back a few steps. In the blink of an eye, a black figure suddenly stopped at the top of the tent. With a slight stomp of his feet, he leapt towards the mutated brawny man's head. Swoosh! The sword landed on the mutant man's neck, which was as hard as steel. This slash actually produced sparks from the collision. Young hero, be careful. The assistant manager stretched out his hand and shouted with a greatly changed expression. However, the newcomer turned a deaf ear to his shout and directly pulled out the long sword that was half embedded in the brawny man's neck. The sword was covered in a layer of pure white profound light, and the sword in his hand quickly swept across the brawny man's neck. Ah! The mutated brawny man let out an unpleasant blood-curdling scream, and his entire body suddenly fell backwards, heavily smashing into the ground. In a short moment, his head fell from his neck and was sliced into 4 or 5 pieces by the sword in the black-clothed youth's hand. Clap, clap, clap. 2 or 3 scattered claps came from behind the crowd. Chapter 772. The assistant manager and the others turned to look, only to see a young man about 20 years old leading a dozen or so young men and women carrying swords striding over. He chuckled as he looked at the black-clothed youth who had made a move. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect our sixth young master Jing to have such a heroic complex. Sigh, to actually draw his sword to help when he sees injustice on the road. TSK, this kind of character truly isn't like a member of the Jing family. Truly impressive. The young man who spoke curled his lips mockingly as he cast a sidelong glance at the black-clothed youth. Make way, make way, make way. A dozen or so young men and women squeezed out from the crowd of onlookers. The man in the lead wore a brocade robe and was slightly plump. When he saw the black-clothed youth, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he hastily rubbed his hands as he walked up with a smile, calling out, Sixth young master, why are you walking so fast? Sixth Jing sheathed his sword and calmly cast a sidelong glance at the plump young man. The plump young man cracked open his mouth and giggled foolishly. He abruptly turned his head and pursed his lips to glare at the young master who had mocked Sixth Jing. Hey, Hui Fan, are you looking for trouble for no reason? What, you're not convinced that you lost to our sixth young master in the previous competition? Then come at me. The young man who had mocked Sixth Jing earlier was precisely the second brother of the Royal Guard Commander Hui Fan. A young lady who resembled Hui Fan somewhat, also with a square face and dashing eyebrows, gave a cold snort when she heard this. She cast a sidelong glance at sixth young master Jing and said, fishing for fame and compliments, putting on an act. You old lady who can't get married, who are you saying is coarse? Coarse? Who are you talking about? The plump young man couldn't say the words, fishing for fame and compliments, coherently, so he could only cough lightly and smooth things over for himself. This daddy disdains to quarrel with an old lady like you. Wu Xiao, and someone with such a low cultural level like you should speak less incoherently if you can't speak coherently. It's making people laugh. Hui Ling crossed her arms and swept a disdainful glance at the plump young man. Who dares to laugh? Who dares to laugh at an old fellow? Wu Xiao and was so angry that his chubby face was bulging. Sixth Shang. Hui Fan led his men and walked to the front of the black-clothed youth with his head held high. Along the way, our two teams were almost evenly matched, and we couldn't decide who was better. How about this, from now on, we'll set a day as the limit. Whoever can get a dough of food first will be the winner. Everyone, let's rely on our own abilities, regardless of our methods. How about that? Do you dare to compete? By this time, the assistant manager had already recovered his wits, and he hastily led his subordinates to welcome sixth young master Jing. He repeatedly bowed and said, many thanks to this young master for lending a hand. Sixth Jing cupped his fists in return and didn't say anything. His handsome face was taut from beginning to end, without the slightest hint of a smile. Go away, go away. Hui Ling rudely pushed aside the assistant manager who was squeezing between them and looked at sixth young master Jing with raised brows. Sixth Jing, did you hear what my brother said? Do you dare to make a statement? Fuck. Old woman, who wouldn't dare? Ah. Wu Xiao An crooked his mouth and slanted his eyes. He looked back at Hui Fan and his sister with a disdainful expression. Who are you calling an old woman? Hui Ling swung a fist over, but it was directly blocked by Sixth Zheng's sword. Wu Xiao An hid behind Sixth Zheng and made a face at Hui Ling. I'm talking about whoever responds. You're already 22, but you still haven't gotten married. Just look at the entire capital. How many old ladies are there like you? I'm going to beat you to death with your cheap mouth. Hui Ling's expression abruptly changed, and she raised her hand to slap Wu Xiao An, who was behind Sixth Zheng. Chapter 773. Sixth Zheng suddenly raised his hand and pushed his scabbard in front of Hui Ling, blocking her punch. He gazed at her coldly and said softly, not competing. Sixth Zheng, it's not like we're scared of them. A trace of unwillingness flitted across Wu Xiao's chubby face. Besides, we have you, so why should we be scared of them? Don't want to compete. Sixth Zheng withdrew his scabbard and turned to leave. Hui Ling abruptly shot forward to block his path, her willowy eyebrows furrowing as she reprimanded, Sixth Zheng, what do you mean? Are you looking down on our Flying Rock operation team? Sigh, I'm just looking down on you guys. Wu Xiao's words made Hui Ling want to slap his cheap mouth again. Sixth Zheng glared coldly at Wu Xiaoan, causing him to shrink his neck and retreat back into the team. Miss Hui, we still have other important matters to attend to on this trip. Sixth Zheng's bright black gaze landed on Hui Ling's face, causing the latter to blush slightly as she guiltily avoided his gaze. Yo, Hui Ling, your face is all red, he ha ha ha. Wu Xiaoan, who had a cheap mouth, reverted to his old ways and laughed loudly. It can't be that you still have some unrealistic thoughts about our sixth young master even now, right? You aren't married at such an old age, so it can't be that you're foolishly waiting for our sixth young master to grow up, right? Ha 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 ha. This is too hilarious. You're a full 5 years older than sixth young master. You're an old lady, yet you're still thinking about sixth young master, who is in his prime. Why don't you go home and look in the mirror? Go to hell, Wu Xiaoan, you lowly wretch. See if I can't kill you. Hui Ling threw a cold saber at Wu Xiaoan's mouth. Sixth Zheng suddenly reached out, grabbing the laughing Wu Xiaoan and irritably slapping the back of his head. Enough nonsense. When the assistant manager saw that these two teams were about to come to blows, he hastily led people forward to stop them. Everyone, please calm down, calm down. You're the manager here, right? We want to enter the city. Hui Ling took her saber and roared at the assistant manager in humiliation. Ah. Everyone, my apologies. Bailon City is currently under martial law, and the city gates only open once a day. If you want to enter the city, you have to wait until tomorrow morning. So troublesome. Hui Ling hugged her saber and walked away angrily. Second brother, I want a separate tent. Tisk. Wu Xiaoan pursed his lips. There are many ugly people. Hui Fan swept a cold glance at Wu Xiaoan, who promptly rubbed his chin and sneakily hid behind Sixth Zheng. Hui Fan cupped his fists and saluted Sixth Zheng absent-mindedly. Sixth Zheng returned the salute and calmly watched the members of Operation Ping leave. Sixth Zheng, after we resupply in the city, we still have to continue with the mission. Wu Xiaoan muttered, who would have thought that you, the sixth young master of the Zheng estate, would have to go out on missions to earn your living expenses. You reap what you sow, it's only right. Sixth Zheng sheathed his sword on his back and turned to walk towards the assistant manager to inquire about accommodations. Inside Bailon City's yellow pole breeding farm. When Hong Yaowei and the others were forcefully dragged by City Lord Lin to the embankment of the field, they saw the Crown Prince and Crown Princess smiling at each other as they stood in the middle of a patch of bright yellow pole field. At this time, Hong Yaowei already couldn't be bothered to look at how pleasing this handsome man and beautiful woman were to his eyes. He gaped with a stupefied expression as he dazedly looked at the suddenly ripe yellow pole field. He practically rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Chapter 774. How was that possible? It was impossible. According to their breeding records, it would take at least 8 to 9 days for this yellow pole field to reach the half-ripened stage. But it suddenly ripened today. Didn't they find it too strange? Hong Yaowei abruptly turned to look at City Lord Lin, only to see that Lin Yongyi also looked like he had seen a ghost. City Lord Lin, didn't you say that my junior sister ruined the yellow pole field? When Lin Yongyi came to find him just now, it was as if he had seen his father's murderer. He pounced on him and gave him a few punches without any explanation, beating him until the corners of his eyes were swollen. But now, wasn't it the greatest irony that the yellow pole field looked like it had a bountiful harvest? Lin Yongyi also subconsciously wiped his eyes. He hastily got off the ground and scooped up a handful of soil. After examining the yellow poles, he couldn't resist laughing with tears in his eyes. All right, this is great. City Lord Lin, what's going on? Hong Yaowei turned to look suspiciously in Arbor and Mo Lian's direction. On the way here, he had already heard that it was the Crown Princess who had skillfully cured the symptoms of the Edelweiss in their bodies. He also heard that she had also cured the lethal poison left behind by his junior sister, Feng Manyun, in the well. Hong Yaowei was filled with shock and suspicion. The poison in his junior sister's hands must have been brought out from Celestial Medicine Valley. It was an extremely poisonous substance. Even so, this Crown Prince consort was able to resolve it so easily. It could be seen that her medical skills were brilliant. The scariest thing was that he suspected that this Crown Princess might have some spirit herb that could accelerate the growth of plants. Thus, she could ripen the entire yellow pole field overnight. Unfortunately, City Lord Lin ignored him and didn't have the intention to explain to him. He simply threw himself into the yellow pole field and shouted while crying and laughing. After going through numerous trials and tribulations, this batch of yellow pole field finally ripened. Prince Mo grasped the little girl's small hand tightly and whispered into her ear, "You can't tell anyone about the sacred soil." A small pinch of sacred soil plus the watering of sacred water could actually revive nearly 10 mu of yellow pole field, resulting in such a bountiful harvest. Naturally, he couldn't let others know about such an eye-opening sacred object. Otherwise, it would be like the holy water, attracting covetous eyes and causing unnecessary trouble. Xiao Mu tilted her small head and nodded in understanding. The sacred land was in seclusion. Other than the sacred land in her hands, she didn't have anything else. After all, she still hadn't completely fused with the earth essence. If she could fuse with it like the holy water, she would be able to control the water and soil on her own. It would be much more convenient for her to plant anything. The little fellow looked up and whispered to him, "Mo Lian, tell me what you want to plant in the future. I'll secretly put some holy soil in the ground and water it. When the time comes, you'll get whatever you want. It can also completely improve the quality of the soil, accelerate the harvest, and increase the yield." Mo Lian was in a good mood as she reached out to pinch the little girl's tender cheeks. She reached out and hugged her. "My baby is really amazing. If the little guy had a tail, it would definitely be wagging it left and right." He said proudly, "Of course. Don't joke around." This was the power of the sacred land and holy water, the origin of the 5 spirits. It was just planting something, how could it not be easy? Mo Lian couldn't help but laugh. He carried her and walked out of the field ridge. He whispered in her ear, "I'll get someone to collect this piece of land and plant another batch." While the effects of the sacred land and holy water hadn't completely disappeared, let the yellow pole seeds also freeload with great nourishment in the next round. Chapter 775. If his guess wasn't wrong, after the improvement of the sacred earth and sacred water, the yellow stalks planted in this 10 mu of farmland could be shortened by at least 1/3. Moreover, they didn't need to find a commissioner to take care of the farmland anymore. They only needed to send several honest farmers to be responsible for irrigating the fields regularly, so they basically didn't need to expend any effort. When the Crown Prince revealed this news to City Lord Lin, Lin Yongyi cried tears of joy again. This was great news. City Lord Lin. Hong Yaowei questioned with a grim face, what exactly is going on? Why is the yellow stalk field? Guards! Lin Yongyi suddenly hollered, and the guards of the city lord's estate immediately swarmed over and bowed to await his order. Break this person's limbs and throw him out of the farm immediately. Lin Yongyi bellowed while pointing at Hong Yaowei with a solemn expression. Lin Yongyi, you dare! Hong Yaowei was so anxious that his eyes had turned red, and he was forced to kneel on the ground. Hong Yaowei shrieked, Lin Yongyi, I'm from Celestial Medicine Valley. Lin Yongyi, you bastard, you actually dared to lay your hands on me. I'm from the Mo Kingdom capital's Hong Estate. You dare, you dare. Ah! Smack! A staff smashed heavily into Hong Yaowei's back. Hong Yaowei was only an ordinary physician, so wouldn't he fall to the ground while spitting out blood and foaming at the mouth from this strike? Your junior sister, Feng Manyun, is vicious and wants to kill everyone in the entire farm. Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame that good junior sister of yours. People like you simply don't deserve to be physicians. Break his limbs for me. Make sure they can't practice medicine and harm people in the future. Lin Yongyi waved his hand resentfully, leaving behind a group of vicious subordinates to furiously smash Hong Yaowei's limbs. A quarter of an hour later, a crippled and blood-soaked person was carried out of the farm and thrown out of the door, leaving him to fend for himself. Lin Yongyi. Feng Manyun. You're the ones who harmed me. Hong Yaowei couldn't conceal the hatred in his eyes. His body trembled as he crawled forward, dragging out a long trail of blood on the ground. Suddenly, a black shadow landed beside him. Hong Yaowei raised his head to look, but before he could see the person's face clearly, his neck was slit by a sharp sword. The night was quiet, and the moon was as clear as water. Mo Lian sat sideways on the edge of the bed and reached out to pat the little one on the bed. Under the illumination of the moonlight, the little fellow hugged the chubby little white squirrel and fell into a deep slumber. The window frame moved slightly. Mo Lian reached out to help her tuck in the corner of the quilt. He got up and walked towards the door. With a flick of his sleeve, the candle flame followed his figure and gradually went out. Your Highness, Hong Yaowei has already been cleaned up. Hui Feng cupped his hands and murmured. Yes. Mo Lian responded indifferently. She raised her hand and gently closed the door. I want the information of everyone in the Hong family. Yes. Lin Yongyi is benevolent and righteous, but he is not decisive enough. Choose someone to support him. Yes. Hui Feng nodded slightly and watched as the crown prince left. He then turned to glance at the side room, and shortly after, he disappeared into the night with a single breath. Cuckoo. A black shadow glided across the night sky and sank into the moonlit night. The sleeping arbor seemed to have stirred and abruptly opened his eyes. He stared coldly at the muslin canopy above his head and stared blankly for a while. He abruptly jumped down from the bed barefoot. He arrived at the edge of the bed in a flash and gently lifted the curtain with his fingers. His gaze was clear as he gazed at the hazy night outside. Chapter 776. Under the night sky, a short and small figure stealthily crept up to the wooden prisoner carriage. Suddenly, she threw herself in front of the pillar and called out softly, Mississippi, Xiangqin, Xiangqin. Hurry and untie my ropes. Xiangqin heaved a sigh of relief and glanced at the 2 to 3 guards who had long fallen unconscious on the ground. She hastily went up and reached her hands through the wooden cage, hastily peeling off the ropes on Feng Manyun's body. Miss, where did you put your black rank pill? Hurry and take it out and consume it. Right, right. My black rank pill, my black rank pill. Feng Manyun, who was sitting in the prisoner carriage, quickly took out a small round porcelain bottle from her chest pocket. She poured out that life-saving black rank pill and swallowed it in one gulp. "Miss, these guards have all been knocked unconscious by me. They're fine now. Xiangqin, find the key and quickly release me." After the master and servant busied themselves for a while, Xiangqin finally took out the key to open the lock and helped Feng Manyun down from the prisoner carriage. "Miss, is your arm all right? What could be wrong with me?" Xiangqin's words seemed to have triggered an abnormal nerve in Feng Manyun, and she immediately wanted to howl loudly. Xiangqin hastily reached out to gag Feng Manyun's mouth. "Miss, don't make a fuss. My medicine is only enough to knock out these people. If the assistant manager and the rest are summoned, we won't be able to escape." Feng Manyun quieted down and muttered to herself, as if she was talking to herself, but also as if she was consoling herself, "I'm fine, my arm will be fine. That isn't a zombie at all, he hasn't undergone a zombie transformation. I will definitely be able to treat it myself, I can treat it. Miss, our carriage is over there. I'll help you over. Let's hurry and leave. No matter what injury it is, when we return to Celestial Medicine Valley, the old Valley Master will definitely take care of it." "That's right." Feng Manyun nodded repeatedly neurotically before turning to Xiangqin with a dazed gaze. "Xiangqin, when I return to Celestial Medicine Valley, I will definitely reward you well." "Miss, I'm relieved as long as you're fine." The master and servant pair stealthily crept to their original carriage. Just as they were about to board, Feng Manyun raised her head neurotically and vigilantly gazed at the horizon. After a gurgling sound, something seemed to glide across the sky. "Miss, it's only a few nighthawks. Don't worry, we can leave this place very soon." Xiangqin helped Feng Manyun into the carriage. Just as Feng Manyun bent over and lifted the curtain, she saw a contorted and stiff face abruptly closing in on her with its mouth wide open. Half an eyeball actually fell out of its socket, and its empty eye sockets stared fixedly at Feng Manyun. "Ah!" Feng Manyun rolled out of the carriage in fright. Her originally injured arm snapped again with a crack from this toss. 3 or 4 strange people with stiff and twisted expressions crawled out of the car one after another, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced at the master and servant. "Go away, go away!" Xiangqin screeched as she picked up a wooden stick and smashed it fiercely at the 2 strange people pouncing over. At the same time, screams and yells continuously rang out from several tents. The tent district was in a mess, and countless people rushed out of their tents in bewilderment. "Light the lanterns, quickly light the lanterns." The assistant manager jumped out of his tent and shouted loudly. "See you tomorrow." Chapter 777. What's going on? When the City Lord Manor's guards lit their torches and the assistant manager saw the scene in the shed area, he couldn't help but be shocked, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Only to see that the entire shed area was in chaos. Mutated people with stiff bodies and slow movements were everywhere, biting and tearing at the ordinary civilians they caught. Assistant manager. Not good. A guard hurriedly reported, "I don't know what's going on, but a portion of the injured people have all mutated." The injured people collectively mutated. This kind of thing had never been heard of before. This caught everyone off guard. Everyone was caught off guard. Everyone was caught off guard. Many of the people living in the shed area were operation teams that went out to do missions. According to the rules, they had to stay in the shed area for 3 to 5 days before they could enter the city. Therefore, when the shed area became chaotic, the operation team members were the first to run out of their tents, spontaneously forming a battle line, and at the same time going forward to encircle and annihilate the mutated people. Of course, there were one or two operation teams that were caught off guard and attacked by their own team members. Hui Fan's Flying Rock operation team was one of the teams that were attacked by their own team members. Hui Ling's eyes were red, staring at two of her own team members who were firmly pressed down on the ground, constantly howling and howling, as if they had completely lost their mind. She cried and scolded, "How can it be like this? Our team didn't encounter any corpse puppets these few days. The injury on Old Hu's leg was clearly scraped by the earth thorns. How can it be like this? He's clearly almost recovered. Press him down." Hui Fan raised his sword and strode forward, grabbing the hair of the team member who was howling non-stop. The sword in his hand didn't hesitate at all as he slashed towards Old Hu's neck. "Captain. Second brother. He has lost his mind. He's mutated. Leaving him alive will only harm us." Hui Fan's eyes were scarlet. He roared and decisively chopped off Old Hu's head. The rest of the Flying Rock operation team members all cried out. "How can it be like this?" Hui Ling's tears were like a broken string of pearls, rolling down. "Be careful not to get hurt." Hui Fan tightly clenched his fists, the veins on his neck popping out. I don't know why it's like this. But this situation, I don't think it's an exception. In short, pay attention to protect yourself." Those who had profound armaments had all activated their defensive barriers. "If you don't have a Xian artifact, put on your armor. Everyone, pay attention." Boom! The tent door was suddenly broken by someone, and a gust of cold wind suddenly poured in. Roar! A few mutated humans with bulging eyeballs rushed in, baring their fangs. Their eyes were slightly bloodshot. Clang! One of the body cultivators smashed the metal rod in his hand into the face of one of the mutants without hesitation. The mutated human flew out and crashed into another person. Then, he rolled on the ground and roared as he pounced forward. The tent was torn apart by Hui Fan's sword, and the 12 surviving members of the Flying Rock squad all stood back to back, fending off the mutants that were pouncing on them from all directions. "Why are all these people mutated?" The assistant manager cried out in shock. Quick! Quick! Ring the bell to warn the inner city. Quick! Assistant manager. Deputy manager, a large group of people has appeared on the road ahead, and they are heading towards our city gate. Let us enter the city, let us enter the city. A group of frightened commoners rushed towards the city gate in a panic. Chapter 778. They were too scared that a perfectly fine tent district would suddenly be filled with terrifying monsters. The common people only wanted to live, so they all rushed toward the city gate. Their emotions were surging and somewhat out of control, and everyone let out cries of alarm. Sixth Jing lifted the tent flap and pierced the zombie that suddenly appeared in front of him with his sword. The long sword passed through its throat, emitting a gurgling sound. He pulled out his sword. There were no bloodstains on it, only some mud-like unknown substance. Sixth young master, save me. The slightly plump Wu Xiaoan staggered and fell flat on his face. He got up, pulled up his pants, and strode towards Sixth Zhang. Just as he reached Sixth young master, Wu Xiaoan stepped on a round log and kowtowed in front of Sixth young master with a thud. The corner of Sixth Zhang's mouth twitched. He stepped forward and lifted him up. Wu Xiaoan tugged at his belt, cutting a sorry figure. It looked like he had been badly frightened by the zombie that suddenly attacked. He didn't know if he was unlucky or lucky, but when he went out to pee in the middle of the night, he drowsily heard a strange gnawing sound. Halfway through peeing, he turned around and saw a bloody mouth open at him. Wu Xiaoan was so frightened that his 3 souls and 7 spirits flew away. He even freaking peed on his hand. He didn't even have time to pull up his pants before running to Sixth Young Master for help. Sixth Young Master. So scary. What's going on? Wu Xiaopan asked through chattering teeth. Where are the others? Sixth Young Master. Sixth Young Master. Wu Xiaopan's Earth Dragon operation team had a total of 17 members. Including him and Sixth Young Master, there were only 13 people who ran out of the tent. Where are those 4 people? Wu Xiaopan roared as he pulled up his pants. The 4 of them are. A female team member wept and hung her head. Fuck. Wu Xiaopan was so angry that he threw away half of his belt and casually tied a knot on his pants. What are you crying for? Fuck these guys. Fuck them to death. However, Wu Xiaopan's cool didn't last more than 3 seconds. Move, 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 move. Everyone move aside. At this time, a group of people clustered around a tall and handsome young master in snow-white clothes and a fox fur coat. Behind these people was a group of fleeing commoners, no less than 500 to 600 people. This way, there were even more people in the tent district. It's Second Do. It is Second Young Master Do. A few short exclamations came from Wu Xiaopan's side. The members of the Earth Dragon operation all looked at the young man in the snow-white robe in disbelief. Wu Xiaopan instantly cowered and hid behind Sixth Zheng. This Second Young Master Do, who was renowned throughout the capital for being brimming with talent, reportedly resided in Celestial Medicine Valley all year round. Why would he appear at Bailon City's city gate today? Mingling in the crowd, Feng Manyun, who was using a piece of sackcloth to wrap her severed arm and half cover her head, also clearly saw this Second Young Sir Do, and she couldn't help but tremble all over. Miss, why did young Sir come? Xiangqin's pupils also contracted slightly, and she leaned close to Feng Manyun to ask in a low voice. This was the disciple that the old Valley Master was most proud of. It was said that he was the most promising person to become the next Valley Master of the Celestial Medicine Valley. Normally, Feng Manyun would only glance at him from afar. With her seniority and ranking, she simply wasn't allowed to get close to this young sir. The old Valley Master's granddaughter has also come. Feng Manyun slowly shrank into the crowd. You are this place's manager. Wenren Ningjing tilted her head and gazed innocently at the assistant manager, whose forehead was drenched in sweat. Open the city gate. Chapter 779. Clang clang clang. The warning bell rang, and everyone in the city was startled awake from their dreams. Mo Lien hurriedly put on her clothes and sprinted into her room in Arbor First. She couldn't help but be startled when she pushed open the door to take a look. The little lady had long finished dressing up. Under the waning light, she slowly turned her head around. Her white gown appeared elegant and natural under the moonlight. On the other side, City Lord Lin's eyelids were twitching wildly as he crawled out of bed. He hurriedly put on his clothes before rushing to the city gate. When he climbed up the city gate tower to take a look, his eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. The entire shed district was rather chaotic. Originally, there were close to 1,000 people squeezed into the shed district, and now, with the several hundred commoners that Second Do had brought over, the passageway was almost full. Countless people crowded at the city gate, wailing, "Open the city gate! Open the city gate! Open the city gate!" A man carrying his old mother on his back shouted as he banged his head against the sturdy city gate. "City Lord, I beg you to be merciful. Let my child enter the city, City Lord." Lin Yongyi was a benevolent person to begin with, and he couldn't bear to see this kind of scene the most. Even his eyes were a bit red. However, he still had a trace of reason in the end. After hurriedly asking the soldiers guarding the city, he found out that the entire Shed district had encountered an unforeseen event. All of the injured had actually mutated into zombies. As the city lord, not only did he have to empathize with the lives of these commoners outside the city, he also had to protect the lives of the several tens of thousands of people inside the city. City Lord. Old Man Sun said gravely, I'll send people to step up patrols inside the city. If the injured can all mutate into zombies while still alive, then what about inside the city? Who knew if someone in the city had mutated after suffering a minor injury for no reason? Alarmed, Lin Yongyi hurriedly nodded and said, Hurry, hurry. City Lord, for some reason, there is a large group of zombies 5 kilometers away heading towards Bailon City. Second Do's deep and calm voice slowly rang out under the night sky. City Lord should quickly open the city gate and let these innocent commoners in. Lin Yongyi's expression changed in alarm, and he clenched his fists. Is this true? While Second Do was speaking, many small squads were currently fighting with the mutated people in the Shed district outside the city. The defenseless civilians huddled together as much as possible to prevent themselves from being scratched by the zombies that suddenly pounced on them. I'm not lying. What are you nagging about, old man? Hurry and open the city gates. Wenren Ningjing was so anxious that she stomped her feet. As the city lord, you're responsible for the lives of the people. Are you going to watch as your people are torn to shreds by the corpse puppets? Lin Yongyi's lips drooped as he clenched his fists. No. We can't open the city gates. How would I know if any of these people had been scratched by the corpse puppet? Is there anyone mutating? If we let them rush into the city, wouldn't they bring disaster to all the people in the city? You damned old man. Wenren Ningjing pointed at the city gate tower and cursed, the people inside are people, but aren't the people outside? How can you bear to watch them die without doing anything? Lin Yongyi stiffened his neck and turned his head. I can't make the decision on this matter. Then tell the one who can make the decision to come out. Next to Wenren Ningjing, an arrogant and bossy girl shouted angrily. Your Highness. Your Highness. Greetings to your Highness. Greetings came one after another from below the city gate tower. It wasn't until Mo Lian's figure appeared on the city gate tower that Lin Yongyi wiped the sweat on his forehead and bowed towards Mo Lian with a wry smile. Your Highness. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.